Chapter 106. They looked at each other and saw helplessness and wry smiles in each other's eyes. What's wrong? Sang Hong looked at them strangely and smiled. Don't worry, this is great news. Uncle and Aunt will be happy to hear it. They won't do anything. They won't make things difficult or ridicule them. Sit down. Feng Shi forcefully pushed him down and glared at him. Use your brain and think. Brother has been poisoned by Jiyuan. He's a big shot in Willow Town now. Who knows how many people will try to curry favor with him. With Uncle and Aunt's temper, they'll do anything under the guise of brother. You're trying to get brother killed. Sang Hong's face changed and he broke out in a cold sweat. This might be. No way. Do you really think so? Humph, they even dared to set their sights on Wan Yang, let alone brother. Fong sneered. Sang Hong's heart sank and his palms turned cold. He knew his wife was right. With Uncle and Aunt's personalities, it was entirely possible. Moreover, they were the elders and he was the younger generation. He couldn't even say a word, otherwise it would be disobedience and unfilial. If father and mother were still around, they would be able to suppress second uncle and second aunt. Similarly, second uncle and second aunt could not go against the word filial piety. However, father and mother were no longer around. You're right, sister. I rushed back before the people at the yamen to announce the good news because of this. Sang Yufei sighed. It's not that I dislike uncle and aunt, it's just that I can't respect them for what they've done. Fong glanced at Sang Yufei, thinking that Duke Juan had a way with words. The things that the couple had done made people unable to respect them. They just wanted to slap their faces a few times. But in at most 1 or 2 days, the people who will deliver the good news will come. This matter can't be hidden from them. Sang Hong couldn't help but frown. For the sake of his brother's future and reputation, he could disregard everything. Even his uncle and aunt had to step aside. I have an idea that we can try. At the very least, it can shut their mouths. Sang Yufei said as he explained his idea to his brother and sister-in-law in detail. Sang Hong still looked a little hesitant, but Fong covered her mouth and laughed. She said happily, I think it's a good idea. Let's do it. At that time, they won't be able to say a single word. As he spoke, he sighed. They are so shameless. I'm afraid that when the time comes, they will still shamelessly suck up to us. We can only take one step at a time. Sang Yufei sighed. An unreliable elder was enough to send him, who had just taken a step forward, off the cliff. After the discussion was settled, Sang Yufei changed into an old indigo gown that had been washed white, and went to knock on Rio Kuwabira's door. Li Li peeked through the crack of the door and deliberately asked loudly, Who is it? Second aunt, it's me. Sang Yufei raised his voice and smiled as he answered. After a long while, the door was lazily opened with a creak. Li crossed her legs and leaned against the doorframe with one hand on her waist and the other on the doorframe. She glanced at Sang Yufei and said with a smile that was not a smile, Oh, Fei is back. How is it? Hangzhou is quite prosperous and fun, right? It's all right. Sang Yufei smiled honestly and said, Second aunt, we don't have any noodles. Sister-in-law asked me to come and borrow some flour. How could Li be willing to lend things to others? When she heard this, her face fell and she sneered, Where would we have flour? We don't have any. She sneered and said, I say, isn't your sister-in-law too cold and heartless? You see, this time you didn't pass the exam and she couldn't even bear to cook noodles for you. She even asked a scholar like you to collect flour. Oh, how insulting. Your sister-in-law is too narrow-minded. Isn't this your first time taking the provincial examination? You're still young. There will be more opportunities in the future. Second aunt, Big Brother's house really doesn't have any flour. Sister-in-law said that you went to town to buy flour yesterday. Are you going to lend it or not? She didn't say that she wouldn't return it to you. Sang Yufei became impatient and said without any courtesy, What kind of attitude is this? Who are you talking to? What? So what if I don't lend it to you? You want to rob me? Li suddenly raised her voice and said sharply. Ryo Kuwabara couldn't help but get angry when he heard this. Thus, he also ran out and scolded Sang Yufei. Useless thing, you dare to talk to your second aunt like that. So you came to our house to vent your anger when you didn't pass the exam. With your appearance, why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? How can you pass the exam? You should rest your heart and obediently go back to farming. Don't waste your money and don't even have food to eat in the future. It was lunchtime, and the men and women of each household had just returned home to eat lunch and rest. They hadn't gone out to work yet. The villagers didn't have much entertainment, but the nature of gossip was the same everywhere. Ryo Kuwabara and his wife's loud scolding had already attracted the attention of the men and women of the neighborhood. Soon, more than 10 people had gathered. Everyone saw Sang Yufei standing there with an awkward and helpless expression, as if he was being pointed at by Ryo Kuwabara. They couldn't help but discuss and secretly sympathize with Sang Yufei. A few older and more mature people couldn't help but go forward to persuade Ryo Kuwabara. In any case, he's your nephew. Brother Sang, if you have something to say, we can talk it out. Why do you have to be so angry? This useless thing. I hate iron for not living up to expectations, really. You're just like your damn father, not listening to anyone's advice. Humph, do you have that kind of life? Ryo Kuwabara angrily scolded and said to the crowd, who knows how much money he wasted on this trip to Hangzhou? Sooner or later, he'll squander away all his money. That's right. Otherwise, you won't even be able to eat porridge in the future. Li fiercely rolled her eyes at Sang Yufei. Everyone knew that Sang Yufei had gone to Hangzhou to participate in the provincial examination. Seeing him come back alone, dressed in shabby clothes, and with the glorious history of the Sang family, without asking, everyone subconsciously believed that he didn't pass the exam. Although to a certain extent, they felt that Ryo Kuwabara was right. After all, how could a country bumpkin have so much spare money to waste? It wasn't like there weren't any old scholars who didn't have a coffin or good clothes after taking the exam for their whole life. However, Ryo Kuwabara and his wife's words really didn't sound like what an elder would say. Sang Yufei was also angry and said sternly, I only came to borrow some flour from second uncle and second aunt. If you can't bear to lend it to me, then forget it. Why do you have to say so much? I, Sang Yufei, didn't spend a single cent on the exam. It's fine if you talk about me, but why do you have to talk about my father? Second uncle, since you're so disrespectful to my father, don't blame me for not recognizing you as my second uncle. Do you think we care so much? Li spat her saliva and scolded. You calling me second uncle is worth so much money. If you don't want to recognize him, then don't. Everyone heard it. You're the one who said you don't want to recognize him. If you have any problems in the future, don't come looking for us. You still dare to talk back. Ryo Kuwabara was also angry. You were the one who disrespected my father first. Sang Yufei didn't budge an inch. Second brother, what's going on? Fong and Sang Hong also came. Fong said, I only asked you to borrow some flour. How did it end up like this? Oh, you're using my things as a favor. Li said sarcastically, if you're so generous, why don't you buy it yourself? Now you want to get rid of this burden and use my family's food to raise him? Don't even think about it. Second aunt. Sang Hong's face sank and said, Ah Xian only said to borrow, she didn't say to take advantage of second aunt. I'm willing to raise my biological brother for a lifetime. Second aunt, don't say such ugly words. Okay. Then you can raise him for a lifetime. Don't borrow from us. We don't have it. Li snorted. Then I won't lend it. Fong sneered. Elder, you're actually so cold-blooded and heartless. Your mouth is so loud. All these years, when have you helped him with a needle or a thread? Don't act like an elder and lecture him. Since you're looking down on him so much, from today onwards, we'll cut all ties. Even if Fei can't pass the exams, we're willing to raise him. Even if we have to beg for food, we won't come to your house. If you have the ability, when he passes the exams in the future and becomes rich, I'll submit to you if you don't bask in his glory." When everyone heard this, they remembered what Ryo Kuwabara and his wife had done to the Sang family's first branch all these years. They couldn't help but discuss it. Although it wasn't appropriate to speak too directly, the way they looked at Ryo Kuwabara and his wife changed. "You shrew, you." Ryo Kuwabara pointed at Fong in anger. He had hoped that Sang Hong would teach his wife a lesson, but Sang Hong's face was ashen and he stood there motionless. It was obvious that he agreed with his wife's words. Even he was rebelling. Ryo Kuwabara was so angry that he almost jumped up. He sneered, "Fine. If he can pass the exams, I, Ryo Kuwabara, will write the 3 words Ryo Kuwabara upside down. Don't even mention basking in his glory. Even if he begs me, I won't. Someone like him wants to pass the exams. Only if there's smoke rising from his ancestors' graves." Li snorted in disdain. Fong raised her eyebrows and said mockingly, "You're all saying it so easily now, but there's no proof. I'm afraid that when the time comes, you'll put on the airs of an elder. He, who in this village doesn't know that second uncle and second aunt are the most meticulous people in the village? How can they not take advantage of the situation?" Everyone couldn't help but cover their mouths and laugh. They thought of how Ryo Kuwabara and his wife were usually so shameless that even a toad would have to piss 3 times. There was almost no family that hadn't been taken advantage of by this pair of thick-skinned people. Hearing these words, they felt great joy in their hearts. Everyone began to talk in whispers about the two's glorious deeds. When had Ryo Kuwabara ever received such treatment? His old face immediately turned red, and he said angrily, "Preposterous. I, second brother Sang, have always kept my word. When have I ever gone back on my words? Fine. Let's go to Ri Zhong's house and write a contract. You 2 brothers better behave yourselves from now on. I don't care if you freeze or starve to death. Don't even think about taking my things." "Second uncle, are you really willing to do that?" Fong sneered. "Who knows, maybe second brother will pass this time's provincial examination. The good news hasn't come yet, so who dares to say that he won't pass? I think second uncle should still think about it. Don't lose face when the time comes." "What good news?" "Dream on." Li sneered. "What? You're scared when you hear about a contract? You still want to take advantage of our family in the future. Let me tell you, it's too late to regret now. Let's go, we'll go to Ri Zhong's house now. We're all a family, why make such a fuss?" Someone sighed and advised, "That's right, that's right." Everyone agreed. "Humph." Fong sneered disdainfully. How could Ryo Kuwabara and Li endure this? They were so enraged that they wanted to jump up and go to Ri Zhong's house immediately. Chapter 107. Alright, since second uncle and second aunt insist, then let's do as you wish. Second uncle and second aunt, don't forget what you said today. I, Sang Yufei, swear that I will never enter your house again. Sang Yufei bowed and said, "All the villagers have seen it. It's not that Yufei is unfilial, but second uncle and second aunt have gone too far." "What are you saying?" Ryo Kuwabara and Li couldn't wait any longer and dragged Sang Yufei towards Ri Zhong's house. Ryo Kuwabara suddenly stopped and glanced coldly at Sang Hong and said, "In your family, only Wan Nyong is good. Only that child Wan Nyong is worth doting on. You guys, humph." Hearing this, Sang Hong and Sang Yufei's hearts turned cold. That's right, if Wan Nyong married into a good family, of course second uncle wouldn't disown her. But even if it was her biological brother, he wouldn't even put him in his eyes. As a person, he could curry favor with the powerful and shameless to this extent. "Alright." Sang Hong smiled bitterly and said, "Since that's the case, we might as well make a clean break between our 2 houses. From now on, we won't have the slightest connection. Second uncle and second aunt, please don't lecture us in the future." Even Sang Hong could say such words. It really made everyone sigh. That's for the best. I'm too lazy to worry about you guys anymore. Good intentions don't pay off. Rio Kuwabara coldly snorted and said, "From now on, I will only recognize Wan Nyong as my niece. Only that child Wan Nyong deserves to be doted on." The villagers originally wanted to persuade them, but after hearing these words, they couldn't help but feel contempt. That child Wan Nyong deserves to be doted on? In the past, when Wan Nyong was at home, they didn't feel so sorry for her, but they did make irresponsible remarks about her marriage. Li Li was the one who said the most. One day, she will be abandoned by the Shi family. She should take a look at herself first before thinking of marrying into a family like the Shi family. Everyone couldn't help but think that the Sang family's second son and his wife really weren't human. Now that the two families had broken off their relationship, they could live their own lives in the future. That way, they wouldn't have to listen to those gossips anymore. Who knows, they might even be able to prosper sooner rather than later. Thus, the two Sang families went to look for Ri Zhong. In order to show their determination, Rio Kuwabara and Li Kong walked in front with their heads held high, while the Sanghong brothers and Fong slowly followed behind. Who wouldn't love to see such a big scene between the two branches of the family? Before they even reached Ri Zhong's house, almost everyone in the village who knew about the news had followed behind them. Those who didn't know the reason behind it couldn't help but ask those who came first. Thus, those who came first took on the responsibility of answering the questions of those who came later. Both parties sighed again. "What are you dawdling about for? Hurry up!" Rio Kuwabara stopped in his tracks and turned around to shout coldly. "I say, second uncle, are you really not going to reconsider?" Fong smiled. "We're a family after all. Second uncle, don't blame us for returning the favor if you do something wrong." "Don't give me that, you wicked woman." Li Kong snorted. "Haven't we been burdened by you all these years? What more do you want? Let me tell you, now that we're here, you can't regret it even if you want to." "Sister-in-law, don't say any more," Sang Yufei said lightly. "We'll just listen to second uncle and second aunt on this matter. I, Sang Yufei, will no longer have anything to do with the second branch." "That's for the best." Rio Kuwabara sneered. "You're just like your father, stubborn and opinionated." "Humph. Do you think it's so easy to become a high scholar? If you can become one, I'll become a saint too." After saying that, he turned around and left, urging Sang Yufei on. Some busybodies had already rushed over and knocked on the door of Ri Zhong's house, explaining the situation to Ri Zhong. "Isn't this nonsense? The second son of the Sang family isn't young anymore. How could he do something so ridiculous?" Ri Zhong couldn't help but frown and sigh. In his opinion, even though Rio Kuwabara wasn't reliable, he was still the only elder in the Sang family. He felt that having an elder in the family was a good thing no matter what. When something big happened, there would be someone who could make the decision and make the decision. If there were any disputes with others, having an elder to mediate was much better than having to do it himself. He was doing this out of the kindness of his heart, for the sake of the Sanghong brothers. While Ri Zhong was complaining with a frown, Rio Kuwabara and the others had already arrived. Rio Kuwabara didn't wait for anyone to say anything and rushed to tell Ri Zhong the reason for his visit. He accused the Sang Yufei brothers of being unfilial, saying that in order to avoid being angered to death by them in the future, it would be better to sever ties with them today. In the future, they would go their separate ways and not get in each other's way. Ri Zhong naturally knew the character of the Sang brothers, and he also knew Rio Kuwabara's ability to add fuel to the fire. He sighed inwardly and couldn't help but advise Rio Kuwabara, "How about this? Let the two brothers apologize to you, and this matter will be considered over. In any case, they are still a family, and they don't have an elder in their family who can make decisions. You are their uncle, so just take pity on them. Why do you have to be so calculative with your juniors?" Ri Zhong's words were both to advise Rio Kuwabara and to remind Sang Hong and his brother. As he spoke, he gave Sang Hong a look, hinting that he should take the initiative to apologize. If he did, Sang Yufei would naturally do as he was told. Then, he and the other villagers would help to smooth things over, and this matter would be considered over. If it was in the past, Sang Hong wouldn't have waited for Ri Zhong to arrive and would have already apologized. But for the sake of his younger brother's future, and the fact that his second uncle's actions were truly chilling, he felt that it was better to forget about it. If he didn't have an elder like that, then so be it. Thus, he pretended that he didn't see Ri Zhong's look. Ryo Kuwabara saw that Ri Zhong's words were clearly to emphasize his important position, and his heart became even more satisfied. The corners of his eyes were raised high as he looked at Sang Hong and his brother. His mind changed, and he proudly snorted, "If they want me to forgive them, then they must show their sincerity. Kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times, and swear that they will never contradict me again. And you Fei, obediently go back to farming, and don't think about other things. Give me another 200 taels of silver, and I won't bicker with them." When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Kowtowing, swearing, and even asking for 200 taels of silver. His appetite was really not small. Ri Zhong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't expect Ryo Kuwabara to be so unreliable. They are your nephews, after all. I think it's enough if you just apologize. Brother, in the future, your 2 daughters will also have a maternal brother to support them. Ri Zhong advised again. He also reminded him that he only had daughters, and no sons. In the future, he would have to rely on his nephews to send him off. After all, his daughter and son-in-law were from another family. How could they be more reliable than his own nephews? When Ryo Kuwabara heard this, he couldn't help but become vigilant. He secretly said, "Not good. It's better to cut off this relationship. Otherwise, won't these 2 brothers covet my property in the future?" When he thought of the future when his 2 daughters got married, there would be no one in the family. After he passed away, his property, house, and fields would all belong to his 2 nephews. Ryo Kuwabara suddenly felt his heart ache, and secretly made a decision. "Thank you Ri Zhong for your good intentions, but I know my family's matters well, so there's no need for Ri Zhong to worry. I ask Ri Zhong to make the decision and sign the document to cut off the relationship." Ryo Kuwabara cupped his hands and said. Fong couldn't help but say, "Whether or not second brother studies or not, we are the ones providing for him. We didn't say anything, so why are second uncle worried?" "Oh, you can't be afraid that in the future, second brother will become a Juren, Zhuangyuan, and become a high official, and our first branch will be successful, and you will be jealous. What nonsense are you talking about, you wicked woman?" Ryo Kuwabara jumped up in anger when his little secret was pointed out. He glared at Fong and scolded her. He took the opportunity to angrily say to Ri Zhong, "Did you see? How unfilial they are. How dare they talk to an elder like me? Today, you have to make the decision for me." Ri Zhong frowned and scolded Fong. "Fong, you don't have the right to speak here. Hurry up and apologize. Sang Hong, discipline your wife." "Yes, this little woman is ignorant and spoke nonsense. Ri Zhong, please don't blame me." Without waiting for her husband to speak, Fong quickly admitted defeat. She smiled and bowed to Ryo Kuwabara. "Second uncle, this niece-in-law is ignorant and offended you. She made you angry. It's this niece-in-law's fault. Please don't take it to heart. Please forgive me." It was clearly an apology, but Ryo Kuwabara's anger didn't subside after hearing it. Instead, it rose even higher. He couldn't help but snort, "Ignorant and stupid woman. Taking it to heart with you is lowering my status. Fine, today I, Ryo Kuwabara, will say it right here. Even if Sang Yufei becomes the prime minister in the future, I, Ryo Kuwabara, will not try to curry favor with him. Humph, open your eyes wide and see clearly." Fong smiled and didn't say anything. She silently retreated behind Sang Hong. "Ri Zhong, quickly make a decision on this matter. Even if they kowtow and apologize to me and give me money, I still won't forgive them. I still want to live a few more years without being angered to death," Ryo Kuwabara said angrily. Ri Zhong saw that Sang Hong and his brother didn't have the slightest intention of redeeming themselves. Since they've already made up their minds, why should I meddle in their business? Then he thought about how Ryo Kuwabara and his wife usually treated their own nephew. He couldn't help but think, perhaps I'm too pedantic. If I really cut off all ties with them, the Sang brothers might be able to live happily ever after. Fine. Since you trust me, then I'll make a decision for you. Follow me into the house. I'll write the document. Ri Zhong finally nodded. AI, thank you very much. Rio Kuwabara glared at Sang Hong and his brother. He rushed to follow behind Ri Zhong. After the document was written, Ri Zhong read it out loud. Then, he asked both sides if they would consider it again. Rio Kuwabara didn't hesitate to put down his thumbprint. There's nothing to consider. Thank you, Ri Zhong. Sang Hong and Sang Yufei also put down their thumbprints. There were 2 copies, one for each side. Rio Kuwabara shook the thin paper between his fingers and said to Sang Hong and his brother, "Look carefully. From today onwards, I'm no longer your second uncle. Don't think about our family's things, Sang Hong and Sang Yufei looked at each other. They didn't know what he was talking about. Think about their family's things? When did they think about their family's things? Second uncle, don't worry. Sang Yufei was just about to speak when he was interrupted by Rio Kuwabara. He said coldly, "Don't call me second uncle. I, Rio Kuwabara, don't have such a talented nephew like you. Call me second Uncle Sang." Chapter 108. If there's nothing else, you can all go back. Ri Zhong's face darkened as he said indifferently. He was also speechless. There was actually such a cold-blooded and heartless person in this world. Okay, I'll remember. Sang Yufei smiled faintly, but he didn't even dare to call him second Uncle Sang anymore. He bid farewell to Sang Hong, Fong, and Ri Zhong before turning to leave. Rio Kuwabara also carefully put away the document and went back with Li. Although this matter was resolved, Sang Hong and Sang Yufei still felt a little depressed in their hearts. There was an indescribable sense of loss and discomfort. In the past, no matter what happened, the 2 brothers would always take the initiative to apologize in order to keep the peace, so this matter never got out of hand. Who knew that this time, the 2 brothers were unwilling to be submissive, and things immediately got out of hand. Just think about it, if they didn't endure and give in, wouldn't second uncle have already cut ties with them? Unlike Sang Hong and Sang Yufei, Fong's mood was exceptionally good. After leaving Ri Zhong's house, she had a smile on her face and her footsteps were lighter than usual. Let's go back quickly. We haven't even had lunch yet. Mother Su must have already prepared lunch. Fong smiled. Sang Hong sighed and looked at Sang Yufei and said, "Second uncle told us not to covet his things. What are we coveting?" "I don't know either." Sang Yufei shook his head and reminded his big brother, "It's not second uncle, it's second Uncle Sang. Big brother, remember, next time don't call him by the wrong name and make him look bad." Fong heard this and laughed. The corner of her mouth hooked up as she said disdainfully, "You guys don't know?" "I know. He doesn't have a son, only 2 daughters. Isn't it because he's afraid that you 2 will covet his family's property? Heh, he doesn't even think about it. It's good that he doesn't covet other people's things. Who would dare to covet his?" It really seemed like it could be this. Sang Hong and Sang Yufei looked at each other, speechless. All right. It's already over. Don't think about it anymore. Hurry up and go home. The house needs to be cleaned and tidied up. Who knows when the good news will come?" Fong said with a smile. "Sister-in-law is right." Sang Yufei also nodded with a smile. He couldn't help but hold back his breath. He wanted to see what kind of faces second Uncle Sang and second Aunt Sang would have when the officials came to announce the good news. Leaving aside Sang Hong and his wife, Rio Kuwabara and his wife also went home. At night, Fong killed 2 large roosters and a duck. She also fried a large plate of eggs and prepared a sumptuous meal. Sang Hong and his brother invited Ri Zhong and a few other respected elders in the village for dinner. They said that they didn't have any elders in the family in the future. If there were any disputes in the future, they would have to ask the elders to uphold justice. Everyone thought about how few members of the Sang family were in the Sang family. They only had a few scattered clansmen in other counties that couldn't be further away. They had long stopped interacting with them. Their only second uncle was so heartless. They couldn't help but sympathize with them. Coupled with the sumptuous meal and respectful attitude, they all agreed generously. When Rio Kuwabara entered the house, the first thing he did was to carefully hide the document. He was about to talk about the second thing when he saw Lee's gloomy expression. He glared at her and waved his hand in front of her. Hey, what are you doing? Come back to your senses. I say, master, I feel like we've suffered a great loss. Lee sighed and said, what good will it do us to sever our ties with them? It would be better if, even if Fong hated her, mocked her, and rolled her eyes behind her back, she still had to respect her in front of her. Moreover, she could occasionally go to their house to get some firewood or vegetables. Now that they had severed their ties, wouldn't that mean she couldn't go to their house to take advantage of them in the future? Although she felt very good just now, Mrs. Lee felt that something was not right after the feeling was over. No matter what, they were still the younger generation. She had to respect herself. More importantly, they had never received any benefits from her, had they? What do you know? Rio Kuwabara scolded. Don't be blinded by those trivial things. You're happy to take advantage of them? They're waiting to take advantage of you. Otherwise, why would they let you do whatever you want? Humph. A woman's view. They dare. When Lee heard the words take advantage of them, it seemed like there was really such a thing. She suddenly said angrily, I haven't died yet. It's not their turn. What if you're dead? Rio Kuwabara asked. You. Lee was furious. What if you and I are both dead? Who will our property, house, and land belong to? Rio Kuwabara said coldly, we only have 2 daughters. We don't have a son. Lee was stunned, and then her face changed. Yes, after 100 years, without a son, after 100 years, the property would belong to the nephew. This was a matter of course. Otherwise, the widow wouldn't have been kicked out of the house, and the property wouldn't have been divided among her husband's brothers. Sang Hong and Rio Kuwabara were their nephews, so it was reasonable for them to inherit the property. When she thought of this, Lee was even more anxious than Rio Kuwabara. No, this can't be. How can the property that we worked so hard to earn be taken advantage of by outsiders? If she wanted to blame someone, she could only blame her stomach for not living up to her expectations. She only had 1 daughter and couldn't give birth to a son. Lee was sad, and she couldn't help but secretly tear up. Master, I think we should just leave Yen-er at home to find a husband. Lee's brain worked quickly. She clapped her hands and said happily, I think that's a good idea. In the future, the child will also have the surname Sang. This way we will have descendants. Humph, in your dreams. Rio Kuwabara said disdainfully, find a husband? How can we rely on that? When we were alive, we could control that brat. Do you think we can control him when he's dead? With Yen-er's personality, do you think she can control him? When the time comes, he can do whatever he wants. This property will still belong to someone else, not to us. Then what should we do? Are we really going to let those 2 brothers take advantage of us? Lee didn't know what to do. Rio Kuwabara's words were reasonable. After they died, how could they control their son-in-law? Which man would be willing to marry into the family and be someone else's son? I already have an idea. Rio Kuwabara glanced at Lee and said calmly, so, I've decided to take in a concubine. Take in a concubine? What? Lee's eyes widened as she stood up. You say that again. What are you shouting for? Rio Kuwabara frowned and scolded. You almost scared me. Wouldn't everything be solved if you take in a concubine and have a son? You heartless person. I've been with you for so many years and you want to take in a concubine? You heartless person. I don't want to live anymore. Lee sat down on the chair and slapped her thighs as she cried. Calm down. Rio Kuwabara didn't care about her crying at all. He looked at her coldly and said, it's just taking in a concubine. Why are you throwing a tantrum? Won't a concubine respect you after marrying into the family? Won't a son call you mother after she gives birth? Humph, you still have the face to throw a tantrum. If you have the ability, then give birth to a son for me to see. Rio Kuwabara hadn't thought about this before. The more he thought about it, the more he regretted it. The anger in his heart grew as he continued. If you were a virtuous person, you would have taken the initiative to take in a concubine for me to carry on the family line. Now that I've taken the initiative, you still dare to throw a tantrum. Just based on the fact that you have no descendants, I can even divorce you. You. Lee was so angry that her whole body trembled. Her anger was completely extinguished and she didn't dare to throw a tantrum again. She knew Rio Kuwabara's temper. Moreover, she didn't have a son. If she still stopped him from taking in a concubine and he wanted to divorce her, even her family couldn't do anything. At most, they could only throw a tantrum. There were 3 ways to be unfilial, and having no descendants was the worst. Master has already said so, what else can I say? Lee sniffed and said, I'll ask around for Master and find a good girl to bring back. You don't need to worry about this. Rio Kuwabara saw that she was settled with a few words and his heart felt comfortable. He said, I've decided to go to town tomorrow. You stay at home and clean up the west room. Change the bed curtains and blankets to a new one. Lee's face turned white and her heart turned cold. He was going to the town's dentist shop to buy a woman. When Madame Lee thought about how there would be a charming little girl at home tomorrow, she felt uncomfortable all over. She was so jealous that her stomach churned. Master, Lee forced a smile and said, I think we should be more careful with this matter. It's best to slowly ask around and find someone who knows the root of the problem. That dentist shop isn't clean, who knows if there's anything wrong with them? Rio Kuwabara snorted at her, You don't need to worry about this. Do you think I, second Master Sang, am a fool? Humph, that dentist shop can't run away. If they dare to lie to me, I won't let them off. Besides, if I'm not satisfied, I can always buy another one. What's the big deal? Don't forget to tidy up the room for me. Do it yourself and don't tell Aro. What does that girl know? Let me tell you, if you dare to play any tricks on me, you'll have to give up the bedroom tomorrow night. Lee was speechless. She was so angry that she almost suffered internal injuries. She gritted her teeth and said, Master, don't worry, I'll tidy it up myself. I guarantee that Master and the new concubine will be satisfied. Just you wait, Lee. Just wait and see how this old lady will deal with her once she enters the family. Buying her has its advantages. At least she doesn't have the backing of her maiden family. It's easy to control and manipulate. Humph, when she gives birth to a son, I'll sell her off and the son will belong to me. With that thought, Lee relaxed and did not feel as uncomfortable as before. Instead, she took the initiative to curry favor with Rio Kuwabara. Is Master thirsty? I'll go brew a pot of tea for Master. She got up and went to the kitchen, shouting at the top of her lungs, Aro, Aro! Where did you go this time, you damned girl? Hurry up and start a fire to boil some water. The next morning, Sangwon and Shi Fengju woke up in the inn. After washing up, they ordered the servants to prepare breakfast in the room. Chong Huan has already asked around. The good news only arrived in town today, so we'll probably go to the Sang family tomorrow. Let's stay here for one more night and hurry over tomorrow morning. Shi Fengju said with a smile. Sangwon naturally wouldn't say no. She nodded with a smile and said, N. Breakfast was soon served. Although it wasn't as exquisite as the Shi families, it still had everything one could think of. There was fresh shrimp and shredded chicken porridge, black rice porridge, fragrant rice porridge, dumplings, xylong bao, shumai, almond tea, cinnamon tea, creamy pine nut puffs, and pumpkin egg yolk puffs. There were also a few side dishes to go with the porridge. These were all brought from the Shi family's residence. Young mistress, please try this. This servant specially went to Li Ji's place to buy it. I don't know if it's still the same taste as before. Luya walked forward with a smile and placed a bowl of tender tofu pudding in front of Sangwon. "You're quite considerate." Sangwon smiled and said to Shi Fengju, "I used to like to eat this. It must have been hard on this girl to go and buy it." As she spoke, she stirred the tofu pudding with a spoon. The steaming hot and light aroma immediately assaulted her senses. She scooped up a spoonful and tasted it. She nodded at Luya and said with a smile, "It's still the same taste as before. Not bad." "Then, young mistress, please try more." Luya immediately became happy and smiled until her eyes turned into crescents. Chapter 109. Isn't it good that she has you in her heart? Shi Fengju smiled and glanced sourly at Luya. "You lass, you only have eyes for your young mistress. Why didn't you buy a bowl for your young master?" Luya didn't know that Shi Fengju was joking with her. She immediately became nervous and stammered as she apologized. "Young master, please forgive me. This servant will go buy another bowl right now." This servant didn't know that young master also liked this kind of ordinary coarse food. Forget it. Shi Fengju saw that she was so scared that her face turned red. He quickly smiled and said, "I was just joking. You don't have to go. This lass is so simple-minded. How could she take your joke?" Sangwon couldn't help but laugh. Seeing that Luya was embarrassed, she said, "You can go down and eat too. You don't need to wait here." Luya still didn't dare to leave. She timidly glanced at Shi Fengju. Shi Fengju sneered. "Your young mistress asked you to go down. Why aren't you going? This prince is just joking with you. Don't take it seriously." Yes. This servant will take her leave." Luya let out a long sigh of relief and patted her chest. "Is it really that good? I want to try it too." Shi Fengju looked at the bowl of tofu pudding. He calmly scooped a spoonful and ate it. He nodded at Sangwon and said with a smile, "It's really good. No wonder you keep thinking about it." Sangwon's face heated up and the corner of her mouth twitched. Seeing that he didn't feel that there was anything wrong, she didn't want to point it out. Otherwise, it would seem that there was something wrong. "Yes. Lee's tofu pudding is an old shop in town. Many people like to eat it," Sangwon said with a faint smile. "So it's an old shop. No wonder. Let me try it again." Shi Fengju suddenly understood and took a spoonful from her bowl. Sangwon's smile froze. She didn't know if she should continue eating the remaining half of the bowl. It didn't seem good either way. "What's wrong? Why aren't you eating?" Shi Fengju asked deliberately, amused when he saw her blushing neck. His little wife was becoming more and more likable. I'll eat it now." Sangwon was a little flustered. She hurriedly smiled and brought over a clean, empty bowl. She gave half of it to Shi Fengju and said, "Young master, if you like it, you can have half. It's just a novelty." "Okay, thanks a lot." Shi Fengju smiled and finished it in a few mouthfuls. He looked at Sangwon with a smile. Sangwon pretended that she didn't see it. She lowered her head and continued to take small bites. "Since there's nothing going on today, why don't we go out for a walk? I haven't visited your town yet." Shi Fengju laughed again. Sangwon said, "Although there weren't any good places to go in the town, it was better than staring at each other in the room of the inn." She nodded and said with a smile, "The town isn't like Qingzhou. In fact, there isn't much fun or beautiful scenery. If you don't mind, I'll take you around." Shi Fengju smiled and said, "There's no need for beautiful scenery. We'll just stroll around the streets." After dinner, Luya came in with 2 sets of brand new clothes. One was a set of ordinary men's robes made of sapphire blue fine cambric. It had a very simple cut and style. The other was a set of silver-red embroidered muslin sleeves and a white silk dress. It was also very simple in style and material. Wearing these clothes on the streets would not attract attention. Sangwon said with a smile, "You're so thoughtful." She ordered Luya to change her clothes. She also loosened her hair bun and combed it again. She only picked an inconspicuous jade hairpin and inserted it into her hair. After the two changed their clothes, Shi Fengju smiled and said, "Let's go. Take me to the places that you used to visit. I don't come to town often, and I don't have many places to visit. I'll just take you to walk around." Sang Wan smiled. "Okay. Anywhere is fine." Shi Fengju smiled casually. "As long as I'm with you, anywhere is fine." The two of them walked on the streets. When Shi Fengju thought that this was a place that Sang Wan used to visit, he felt that everything was alive and full of tempting spirit. He smiled and asked her from time to time what this place was, what that place was, what were its characteristics, whether she had been there before, and so on. He seemed to be overjoyed. Sang Wan was affected by his enthusiasm and couldn't help but feel happy. She smiled and talked about the past with him. She talked about the cosmetics and silk flowers in the Red Flower Hall, the wonton stall on the East Street, the local temple, and the juggling show on the West Street. She talked endlessly. Sang Wan couldn't help but look at the big iron wok fried with sugar chestnuts. Shi Fengju smiled and went forward to buy a packet. He held it in his hand and said, "Do you like it? When we go back, I'll ask the servant to peel it for you. It's delicious to eat it while it's hot." Sang Wan couldn't help but say. Shi Fengju was startled and said with a smile, "Is that so? I haven't tried it before." As he spoke, he took out a chestnut and peeled it. He carefully blew the dust on it and still felt that it wasn't clean. He frowned and wanted to throw it away and peel another one. Sang Wan said with a smile, "That's how fried chestnuts are. Don't worry, you won't get sick after eating it." As she spoke, she took one and peeled it to eat. "Is that so? Haha." Shi Fengju saw this and subconsciously glanced around. He put the chestnut in his hand into his mouth. It was indeed very fragrant and delicious when it entered his mouth. The hot aroma rushed straight into his mouth. The pink, sticky, and sweet taste was not bad. Speaking of which, as a young master, he had never eaten while walking on the streets. He always felt uncomfortable. He had never touched street snacks like roasted chestnuts before. Seeing that Sang Wan didn't feel strange, he swallowed the words he wanted to say. He thought to himself, "Forget it, as long as she's happy. In any case, it's rare for me to come out. It's quite fragrant. I'm afraid that this thing is too heaty. You'll be fine after eating a few. Don't eat too much." Shi Fengju smiled and peeled another chestnut to feed her. Someone saw it. Sang Wan was slightly embarrassed. She quickly glanced around the street and saw that no one was paying attention. She hurriedly opened her mouth and bit Shi Fengju's finger. It was so painful that he grimaced. "How is it? Does it hurt?" Sang Wan couldn't care less about the chestnut in her mouth and spat it on the ground. She hurriedly held his hand and saw that there were 2 small teeth marks on the tip of his index finger. She immediately blushed and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose." Shi Fengju's finger was held in her hand. He felt that their skin was particularly warm and delicate. His heart had long since become numb and itchy. He didn't feel any pain at all. He just smiled and looked at her. It doesn't hurt at all. The two of you are really loving. Haha, this old one is really envious. Sir, buy a hairpin or a flower for your wife to wear. I have all the new styles here. They're all from Hangzhou and Suzhou. Your wife is so beautiful. She'll definitely look good wearing them." A middle-aged woman wearing a purplish-red dress and carrying a bamboo basket suddenly came over and said with a smile, "We don't want them. You can ask elsewhere." Sang Wan's face blushed. She hurriedly pulled Shi Fengju's arm and wanted to leave. Shi Fengju didn't want to leave. He was happy with Ri Zhong. He smiled and asked the woman, "How do you know that we're husband and wife? How did you know?" The woman was a shrewd person. She knew that her words had made the young master happy. She thought to herself, "This young lady is obviously dressed like a married woman. If you're not husband and wife, how can you be so unrestrained in this market? How can you ask such an idiotic question?" She chuckled and said, "Sir, you and your wife look like husband and wife. If you're not husband and wife, then what are you? The two of you are truly a match made in heaven. With such a loving relationship, you will definitely be able to grow old together. The smile on Shi Fengju's face couldn't help but deepen. He smiled so much that his eyes were shining. He stared deeply at Sang Wan. Sang Wan happened to look at him. She unconsciously blushed and hurriedly avoided his gaze. The smile on Shi Fengju's face became even bigger. Sir, your wife is so beautiful. Buy a hairpin to wear. The woman thought that this young couple was really interesting. They blushed when talking. It seemed that they were newlyweds. It was good to be newlyweds. Newlyweds loved their wives the most. As long as they could afford it, they were willing to buy anything. Shi Fengju glanced at the basket. It was all made of silver wire. The workmanship wasn't very exquisite. They were all very common things. Even the first and second-class servants in the Shi family wouldn't wear them. But at this moment, he was so happy that he felt that it wouldn't be right if he didn't take care of the woman's business. He picked a butterfly hairpin inlaid with broken agate and turquoise and asked with a smile, "This one. How much is it?" "Sir, you have good taste. This hairpin is the best and most exquisite in my basket. The design is also good. It's not expensive. It's only 3 taels of silver," the woman said with a smile. Shi Fengju smiled and took out some money from his pocket. Although he had money on him, he only had banknotes. He had all kinds of banknotes with different amounts, but he didn't have any broken silver. He picked out a banknote worth 10 taels and handed it to the woman with a smile. "Take it. Keep the change." Just based on her words, he felt that the money was well spent. "Oh, thank you, sir. I wish that sir and madam will live together to a ripe old age and be in love forever." The woman was so happy that her whole body itched. Her face was wrinkled into a chrysanthemum as she smiled. Shi Fengju also smiled. He looked at Sang Wan and then looked at the silver hairpin in his hand. He was a bit embarrassed and didn't know what to do with this silver hairpin. Of course, the hairpin that his wife wore in her hair wouldn't be this cheap. The woman found it funny. She thought that this sir had a good appearance, but unexpectedly, he was a bit silly. She was afraid that his wife would have a hard time in the future. She smiled and reminded him, Sir, madam is waiting for you to put it on her. Why are you still in a daze?" Sang Wan's face was flushed. She didn't know what to say and simply didn't say anything. Shi Fengju saw that she didn't have any objections. He thought to himself that he might as well put it on her for good luck. He smiled and carefully inserted it into her hair. This hairpin suits madam so well. Madam looks so beautiful wearing it." The woman smiled and clapped her hands. She said a lot of nice things. She was afraid that Shi Fengju would go back on his words, so she smiled and left. "This woman is a bit interesting." Shi Fengju rubbed his hands and smiled. "She's just a hawker. Flowers can't come out of her mouth. As the head of the Shi family, you actually listen to her." Sang Wan couldn't help but laugh and glanced at him. Shi Fengju stared deeply at her and half-jokingly said, "Her words are pleasant to hear. This sir feels good when he hears them." Sang Wan's face turned red. She didn't say anything and continued to lead him forward. Chapter 110. Ryo Kuwabara was so excited that he didn't sleep well the entire night. He tossed and turned, thinking about what kind of concubine he should buy. Her figure had to be good, her face had to be good, and her skin had to be as tender as a peeled egg. As for her age, 16 or 17 was the most suitable. Of course, if she was especially beautiful and likable, 18 or 19 was also fine. The most important thing was that the price had to be cheaper, much cheaper. Thinking about Ryo Kuwabara, he couldn't help but hesitate. The middlemen in the brothel were all shrewd people. If they didn't have a good price, how could they let go of a good girl? If he wanted a young and good girl, he would need at least 20 or 30 taels. 20 or 30 taels, not 2 or 3 taels. Ryo Kuwabara felt his heart ache when he thought about it. He couldn't help but sigh. In his heart, he thought that it was better to forget about it. In any case, it was to give birth to a son. What was the difference between 30 taels and 10 taels? Just pick one with a big butt and easy to give birth to. Thinking about it again, that would be a huge loss. He was already so old. If he didn't enjoy himself now, it would be too late in the future. Spending 20 or 30 taels was worth it. It was worth it. Ryo Kuwabara made up his mind. He decided that no matter how much he spent, the upper limit of this, no matter how much, was 50 taels. No matter what, he had to pick a satisfactory one. The next morning, Ryo Kuwabara woke up and ate breakfast. He changed into a brand new brown robe with flower patterns. He had banknotes in his pocket, and his hair was combed smoothly without a single hair out of place. He happily went out the door. Lee leaned against the door frame to look at him. She hatefully glared at his back and spat. She cursed in a low voice. She turned around and vented her anger on Sang-ro. She called her over and pointed her finger at her forehead, scolding her. Sang-ro, as usual, drooped her head and silently pretended to be dead. However, in her heart, she was secretly gloating. She was even more anxious than her father to have a new concubine marry into the family. No matter what, it would not be good for her to attract the attention of the enemy. However, it would definitely be bad for Lee. Ryo Kuwabara hired an ox cart to go to town. He was only willing to pay 6 copper coins, but the owner of the ox thought he was stingy, so he deliberately slowed down and let the ox slowly graze on the grass as they walked. It was equivalent to letting the ox graze while they were at it. No matter how much Ryo Kuwabara urged him, he only pretended to be deaf and dumb. When Ryo Kuwabara arrived at town, it was already noon. When he jumped off the cart, he was very dissatisfied. In the end, he only gave the other party 5 copper coins. The owner of the ox cart was so angry that he couldn't speak, but he also knew the other party's character. He knew that there was no way he could get the 1 copper coin back, so he could only angrily give up. "Hey, little Sue, give me a ride back in the afternoon. You're going back anyway, right? I'll give you 3 coins at most." Ryo Kuwabara thought he was being very generous. The owner of the ox cart looked at him with disdain and snorted coldly, "I can't afford to earn your money. I still have to rush back to do farm work. You should hire another cart." After saying that, he swung his whip and left without looking back. In his heart, he thought that the Sang brothers were right to cut ties with him. It would be better not to have this kind of elder in their family. As he said that, he looked at himself with disdain. What was the point of coveting this little bit of money? This little bit of money wasn't enough to make him angry. Really? You have money, but you don't know how to earn it. You deserve to be poor. Ryo Kuwabara snorted disdainfully. With his hands behind his back, he strolled into the bustling market unhurriedly. He planned to eat lunch first before going to see the person. Letting the new concubine eat an extra meal at the broker house could be considered a profit for him. Ryo Kuwabara picked a noodle stall by the side of the road and sat down. He ordered a large bowl of steaming hot noodle soup and specially asked the waiter to add some chopped green onions and wontons. Just as he picked up his chopsticks and was about to scoop up the noodles, he heard the rapid sound of a gong on the street. A man in his early 30s wearing a dark brown uniform was hitting the gong and shouting at the top of his lungs, "Good news! Good news! Great news! Our Willow Town Sai Village's second young master, Sang Yufei, has won the Autumn Festival's first prize, Jiuan. Good news! Good news! Great news!" The official was beating the gong as he shouted. Other than Sang Yufei, there was another person in Willow Town, He Shinji, who had also won the High Scholar examination. He took turns to announce the names of these 2 people, attracting the attention of countless people behind him. They all wanted to know who Sang Yufei and He Shinji were. Between the conversations, there were sighs, praises, and envy. For a moment, there was a boiling cauldron of voices. It was very lively. Ryo Kuwabara's chopsticks fell onto the table with a clatter. He was completely stunned. By the time he came back to his senses, the official who was beating the gong had already left. Rio Kuwabara stood up abruptly and grabbed the stall owner, asking, "Who? Who did that official say won the GUN?" The little boss was startled by him and stammered, Sang Yufei. "Which village?" "I think. Sai village." "Are you sure? You didn't hear wrong?" Rio Kuwabara's face was pale. He tightened his grip on the stall owner's collar, almost choking him. "No. What are you doing? You're suffocating me." The stall owner came back to his senses and angrily pushed Rio Kuwabara away. He said angrily, "What's wrong with you? What does it have to do with you that he won the GUN? Why are you so agitated?" "What do you mean it has nothing to do with me? That's my nephew. My own nephew." Rio Kuwabara stomped his feet and ran out. "Hey, you haven't paid yet." The stall owner grabbed him. 5 copper coins, thanks." Rio Kuwabara said angrily, "My nephew won the GUN and you still want to take my money? I have to go home quickly." "Even if he won the GUN, you still have to pay." The stall owner was angrily questioned by him for no reason. Rijong was not in a good mood and did not want to back down. He rolled his eyes and said disdainfully, "What's more? How do I know that you're not a big liar who cheats for food and drinks?" He thought to himself, "How can your nephew win the GUN if you're like this? Then my son will be the GUN. Don't look down on me with your dog eyes. Just you wait, I'll remember you." Rio Kuwabara was so angry that he trembled. He was so anxious that he did not have time to argue with the stall owner. He took out 5 copper coins and threw it to him. He anxiously chased after the stall owner. After finding out that it was indeed Sang Yufei who won the GUN, Rio Kuwabara was so happy that the corners of his mouth almost reached his ears. "Great, this is great. Now I'm GUN's uncle. I'm the only elder in the GUN family." Suddenly, Rio Kuwabara's excited mood fell from the peak to the bottom of the valley. His excited smile froze on his lips as he remembered what happened yesterday. How can it be like this? How can it be like this? Rio Kuwabara stomped his feet in regret. He could not help but complain that the person who announced the good news did not report it a day earlier. "So what? I'm his uncle, no one can change this fact. Now that he's rich, there's no way he won't admit it. Everyone's spittle will drown him." Rio Kuwabara sneered. "Moreover, the village still does not know about this news, right?" He guessed that the kid did not know either. He had to hurry back and change yesterday's matter. Wouldn't everything be fine then? "Right. That's what I'll do." Rio Kuwabara could not help but feel proud of his cleverness. There was no time to lose. This time, he did not care about being stingy. He spent 3 silver coins to hire a carriage. He also did not care about buying a concubine. He anxiously rushed back to the village. When the good news spread throughout the streets, Sang Wan and Shi Fengju were having lunch in a private room of a restaurant. Hearing the gongs and loud shouts from the person who announced the good news, Sang Wan's eyes could not help but light up and the corners of her lips curled up into a smile. "The news has finally come back. That's great, that's really great." Sang Wan looked down from the window and smiled happily. "The yamen will only come tomorrow to announce the good news. Let's go early tomorrow," Shi Fengju said with a smile. The person who announced the good news set up a ceremonial procession. He would arrive around noon. This was also a good time to eat lunch at the host's house. "Okay. Tomorrow's all up to you. I don't understand these things." Sang Wan looked at him with her bright eyes and smiled. "Don't worry. The people I brought are all suitable and capable people. I will give them proper instructions." Shi Fengju saw that she was relying on him, so he was even more happy. Sang Wan suddenly made a sound of surprise. She pointed to the crowd and said, "Look, isn't that second uncle? Why is he here?" Shi Fengju looked in the direction she was pointing. He saw a tall and thin man in his early 50s squeezing through the crowd. He seemed to be asking someone next to him something. It was Rio Kuwabara. Shi Fengju was also secretly puzzled. Seeing Sang Wan frown, he smiled and said, I think it's just a coincidence. I'm afraid the whole village will know about him this time. Do you want us to go back now? Shi Fengju didn't know that Sang Yufei and Sang Wan were discussing about scheming against Ryo Kuwabara. After all, it wasn't something to be proud of, so it wasn't convenient to tell him. No need, Sang Wan said. Regardless of whether second brother did it yesterday or not, she wouldn't be able to help at this time. If she went back now, she wouldn't be able to help. If second uncle forced her, she would be asking for trouble. It was better to wait until tomorrow. Okay, let's do it tomorrow. Shi Fengju felt a little strange, but didn't think too much about it. Ryo Kuwabara anxiously rushed back to Sai village. He got off the carriage and hurried home. Lee was also very concerned about what her new sister looked like. After Ryo Kuwabara left, she didn't know how many times she looked at the door. When she saw him rushing home, she couldn't help but get angry again. She angrily scolded him in a low voice. When she looked again, something was wrong. There was only her husband. There were no concubines. Lee was so happy that flowers were about to bloom in her heart. She shouted, Master, Master. She ran towards Ryo Kuwabara and laughed excitedly. Master, you didn't buy a concubine. What time is it? Why do you still want to buy a concubine? Ryo Kuwabara said angrily. Ah, yes. Lee was overjoyed. Let's wait until we find out more and find a good one. There's no rush, no rush. Let's not talk about this anymore. Come home with me. I have something important to tell you. Ryo Kuwabara became more and more annoyed as he walked. He glanced at Sang Hong's house and couldn't help showing a greedy look. Oh. Lee was still laughing happily. As long as Ryo Kuwabara didn't take a concubine, it was a big deal for her. Therefore, no matter what he said, Lee didn't say anything. Chapter 111. Wait a minute. They were husband and wife after all. She knew Ryo Kuwabara the best. She finally realized what was going on. Master, what happened? Look at what you've done. Ryo Kuwabara snorted coldly. After entering the house, he pulled her into the room and closed the door. He said coldly with a sullen face, Isn't it just 2 kilograms of flour? If Yu Fei wants to lend it to you, can't you just lend it to him? He's my brother's son, my nephew. What's wrong with lending him 1 or 2 kilograms of flour? How can you be so stingy? It's fine if you don't close the door, but why are you scolding him? That's my nephew, and he's also your nephew. How can you be an elder like this? You ignorant and stupid woman. Your conscience has been eaten by a dog. Master. Lee raised her hand and touched his forehead. Are you possessed? Why are you saying such strange things? Why should we lend our things to them? Even if it's a loan, can he return it? Besides, isn't it all in the past? We have nothing to do with them now. What nephew? They're so beautiful. They're not worthy. Lee pursed her lips and thought, Don't just talk about me. Yesterday, you scolded them more happily than I did. Shut up. Lee's words just happened to poke Ryo Kuwabara's sore spot. He shouted angrily, What do you mean by nothing to do with them? Who said nothing to do with them? Even if the bones are broken, the tendons are still connected. How can we not be related by blood? Let me tell you, listen carefully. I, Ryo Kuwabara, will be his uncle for life. If he doesn't want to recognize me, there's no way. How come you've changed after going to town? It seems that I have to invite Fairy Huang over. Lee stared at Ryo Kuwabara with her eyes wide open. All right. Calm down. I'm fine. Ryo Kuwabara finally calmed down after his outburst. He exhaled and said with lingering fear, Fortunately, I went to the town today. Otherwise, I would have suffered a great loss. As he spoke, he told Li everything that had happened. What? Li cried out involuntarily. He's been poisoned by Jiuan. Keep your voice down. Rio Kuwabara glared at her and said in a low voice, No one in the village knows about this yet. Listen to me carefully. Go to their house right now and change yesterday's incident back to how it was. Sang Yufei, that brat, can win Jiuan? Master, did you make a mistake? Li felt very uncomfortable. Why was he able to win the Jiuan? Did he have such good luck? How could I be wrong? Rio Kuwabara snorted. Rio Kuwabara of Sai village in Yonglu town. I heard it clearly and asked a few passers-by. How could I be wrong? Then maybe the official who reported the good news made a mistake. Li began to feel sour. Can't you say something else? Rio Kuwabara poked her forehead. Our Sang family is going to be rich. Are you that unhappy? Master, we just broke off relations yesterday. What does it have to do with us whether they become rich or not? Li pursed her lips. You still have the nerve to say that. Rio Kuwabara said angrily. Yesterday's incident was caused by you. I don't care what method you use. You better turn things around for me. What, you don't want to be Duke Jiuan's aunt? Li's eyes lit up and a smile appeared on her face. She said happily, That's right, that's right. How could I have forgotten about that? We are their elders. Haha, master, we are going to be rich. Hee, that child, Yufei, has been smart since he was young. Like I said, he will definitely have a bright future. Sang Pingyang loved to hear such words. He couldn't help but stroke his short beard and said with a smile, I'll go right now. Li was about to leave. Stop. Rio Kuwabara glanced at her and frowned. Change your clothes and comb your hair before you go. Also, don't tell them that Yufei has been poisoned. Don't say a word, understand? I know, Li said as she opened the wardrobe. If they find out and refuse to let the matter pass, wouldn't that be terrible? I still have that much experience. Humph, at least you're not completely stupid. Rio Kuwabara said as he lay on the bed, hugging his head and crossing his legs. He was leisurely dreaming of getting rich. Li Shi changed into a new set of clothes and combed her hair before heading to Sang Hong's house. She knocked on the courtyard door and called out with a smile, Xiao Fei, Hong, are you home? Soon, the door opened and Fong came out. She placed one hand on the door to block Li. She said politely and distantly, Oh, isn't this second Aunt Sang? What's the matter? What second Aunt Sang? Li said with a smile. You don't even know how to call me second aunt. I'm here to find Fei and Ahiro. Are they home? Tell me what's the matter. Fong stopped her from entering. What right do you have to stop me from entering? Li said angrily. Fong said with a smile, Second Aunt Sang, this is my house, not your house. I can't afford to entertain a big shot like you, so I won't let you in. Besides, Ahiro and second brother aren't home. Not home. Li paused for a moment before remembering. Sang Hong should be teaching the children in the village school. However, Sang Hong was not an important person and could be ignored. She asked, Where did Fei go? He went to work in the fields. Fong said lightly. You guys. How can you let him work? Li was in so much pain that she stumbled. Fong laughed out loud. Second Aunt Sang, my family's matters don't seem to have anything to do with you, right? You. Li glared at Fong, speechless. Fong was not afraid of her in the past, and she was even less afraid of her now. She knew that she could not gain any advantage in front of Fong, so she snorted and said proudly, Since they're not home, then I'll go back first. When they come back, tell them to come to my house. That's not good. Fong said with a smile, Didn't second Aunt Sang and second Uncle Sang say yesterday that they would never step into your house? We're not that thick-skinned to do this kind of self-defeating thing. As she spoke, her cynical gaze swept over her body. Two women who were slightly older than Li happened to pass by. When they saw Li's angry face, they thought that she was here to cause trouble again. They couldn't help but step forward and pull on Lee, saying, "Second sister-in-law of the Sang family, why do you have to do this? Didn't you already sever ties with them? You should be magnanimous and forgive them. That's right, just pretend they don't exist. Why do you have to do this?" The two of them spoke one after another, and after greeting Fong, they forcefully pushed Lee away. Lee was so angry that she glared at them, anxiously arguing with them. Yesterday's matter doesn't count, it doesn't count at all. We didn't sever ties. Oh, how could she say something like that? The two of them looked at each other and couldn't help but secretly despise her. They thought that Lee must have realized that she couldn't take advantage of them after severing ties with them, so she's going back on her words. This person, how could she be so shameless? With the Sang brothers treating their uncle and aunt like this, it must have been a miracle that they hadn't taken all of their belongings. Second sister-in-law of the Sang family, what you're saying is wrong. Yesterday's matter was decided by Ri Zhong. How could it not count when it was written in black and white? Besides, all of us were watching. That's right. The two of them were full of disdain, and before Lee could say anything, they left. How dare you be so arrogant with me? Lee muttered angrily. When this old lady becomes rich, I won't even bother to look at you if you beg me. How was it? Did you settle the matter? Rio Kuwabara asked as soon as Lee returned home. No. Lee was not in a good mood. No. Rio Kuwabara raised his voice. If you didn't, then why did you come back? They're not at home. Lee said, the two brothers aren't at home. That bitch, Madame Fong, even ridiculed me. She's so disrespectful to her elders, I'll ask a Hiro to divorce her sooner or later. Not at home. Where did Fei go? Rio Kuwabara automatically ignored Lee's complaints. Right now, he only cared about Sang Yufei. As for whether or not Lee was ridiculed, it didn't matter. It wasn't like she would lose a piece of meat. He said he went to work in the field. Who knows where he went? Lee said with a sullen face. Work. Rio Kuwabara made an "oh" sound and didn't ask again. He said, Where's Ahiro? He's in school, right? Yes. I'll go find him. Rio Kuwabara brushed his clothes and said, I just thought of an idea. I want to find Ahiro and take him to Ri Zhong to adopt Fei as our son. What do you think? Adopt him as our son? Lee's eyes lit up. She clapped her hands in joy. Good, good. It can't be better. She got a Gun as her son for no reason. Moreover, the master had no reason to take in a concubine. It was simply a great thing. She didn't know that since Rio Kuwabara was lustful, even the emperor couldn't stop him from taking in a concubine. And Rio Kuwabara said proudly, Our second branch doesn't have any descendants. The first branch has 2 sons. It's only right that one of them be adopted to take care of us in old age. Rio Kuwabara was sure that Sang Hong was honest and wouldn't dare to refute his words. As long as he nodded and asked Ri Zhong to make a written agreement, Sang Yufei would have to agree even if he didn't want to. You catch 2 chickens and wait at the entrance of the school. I'll give you 5 taels of silver. When I take a Hiro out of the school, we'll go to Ri Zhong's house. Okay. When Lee heard that she had to catch 2 chickens and give him 5 taels of silver, she couldn't help but feel her heart ache. Listen to me, at the critical moment, Rio Kuwabara was more charming. He stared at Lee and said seriously, Catch the biggest rooster and the hen that is laying eggs. I'm warning you, if you're stingy and ruin my business, I won't let you off. When Lee heard him say that, she felt even more heartache. When she heard the last sentence, she was shocked and hurriedly nodded. Hurry up, I'll go first. Rio Kuwabara said and hurriedly went out. Sang Hong was teaching a class in the school. Seeing Rio Kuwabara waving at him with a smile on his face, Sang Hong's heart thumped. After hesitating for a moment, he gave the students 2 sentences to memorize and then went out. Rio Kuwabara didn't misjudge him. Although yesterday's matter really made his heart cold, he still couldn't pretend that he didn't see Rio Kuwabara. Chapter 112. Second Uncle Sang. Ha ha. No need to be so polite with second uncle. Without waiting for Sang Hong to finish his words, Ryo Kuwabara affectionately pulled his arm. Come, come, follow second uncle. Second Uncle Sang. Sang Hong couldn't help but frown. He pulled his arm back and said seriously, Second Uncle Sang, if you have something to say, just say it. One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Sang Hong was honest, but that didn't mean he was stupid. This isn't the place to talk. Ryo Kuwabara didn't care about his somewhat distant address and attitude. He still smiled affectionately. Come with second uncle and you'll know. There's still an hour before school ends. Second uncle, please wait a little longer. Sang Hong said politely. Why are you being so serious about these good-for-nothing students? Go. Second Uncle Sang. Sang Hong took 2 steps back and said seriously, I've received their tuition, how can I be so careless? Second Uncle Sang, please wait a little longer. You're really… Okay, then you go, I'll wait for you here. Ryo Kuwabara was helpless and could only sigh. This is strange. Sang Hong was secretly shocked. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that he knew something? Sang Hong anxiously returned to the academy, unable to calm himself down. After an hour, he came out of school. He originally thought that Ryo Kuwabara had already left, but who knew that he would stand up from the rock and pull him with a smile. Come with second uncle. Second Uncle Sang, please, I can walk by myself. Sang Hong sighed and could only follow. Yo, a Hiro is here. Bumping into Lee at the entrance of the school, Sang Hong was even more shocked. He didn't understand what this couple was up to. Unknowingly, after walking for a while, he raised his head and saw Rijong's courtyard in front of him. Sang Hong stopped in shock. Second Uncle Sang, second Aunt Sang, this is? Haha, come, you'll know when you go in. Quickly go in. Ryo Kuwabara and Lee pushed and shoved Sang Hong inside. Who's this? Rijong's wife heard the commotion and came out to take a look. Seeing the 3 people and Lee holding 2 fat chickens, she couldn't help but be stunned. Yo, this couple was famous for being stingy in the village. They were actually willing to bring 2 chickens to their house? Moreover, they had never liked Sang Hong and his brother, so why were the 2 of them smiling at Sang Hong today? Haha, sister-in-law, Rijong is at home, right? We have something to ask him to make a decision for us. Lee hurriedly said with a smile. Oh, he's in the house. Please come in. Rijong's wife looked at them inexplicably and hurriedly let them in. Why is it you again? What's the matter? Rijong couldn't help but frown when he saw the couple. Haha, we have something important to ask Rijong to make a decision for us. Lee hurriedly smiled fawningly and raised the 2 fat chickens in her hands. Please accept these 2 chickens as a token of our appreciation. This hen is still laying eggs, haha. Rijong's eyebrows raised high. Put this aside for now. If you have something to say, sit down and talk. Cough. Ryo Kuwabara saw Lee talking too much and immediately coughed twice, coldly staring at her. Master, please say it. Lee embarrassedly shut her mouth. Ryo Kuwabara respectfully cupped his hands and said. Naturally, he didn't mention anything about yesterday's matter. First, he complimented Rijong with a few words, and then he just kept complaining. He said that he was over 50 years old and didn't have a son, and that his future was so bleak. When he talked about the sad part, he couldn't help but sigh. As Rijong listened, his face softened a little, and then he became more sullen. He thought to himself, so you also know this truth. Since you know it, why are you so stingy? Even your own nephew is so cold and heartless. In the future, this family property will be waiting to be taken into the coffin. After complaining, Ryo Kuwabara finally changed the topic. He finally said the purpose of today's visit, and then he tried to squeeze out 2 drops of tears. He got up and bowed deeply to Rijong. Rijong, please make a decision for us. Lee also hurriedly followed suit. Rijong, please take pity on us. Sang Hong was shocked, and his face changed. He never expected that his second uncle and second aunt actually had this idea. It wasn't easy to fight for yesterday's situation, and Sang Hong knew clearly that he would never agree to this. But, if he didn't agree, what should he do? After all, what they said was reasonable. Ri Zhong was also stunned, and he asked in disbelief, "What did you say?" "Say it again." Rio Kuwabara then said it again. Ri Zhong's face was full of anger, and his lips moved, but he didn't say anything in the end. He really wanted to scold. Ridiculous. Nonsense. This couple's age added together was more than 100 years old. How could they do such unreliable things? Yesterday, they insisted on breaking off their relationship with the other party, and today, they wanted to adopt the other party as their son. If their heads weren't kicked by a donkey, what was it? They were still playing Ri Zhong like a monkey. Ri Zhong held back his scolding words and sighed. "Brother Sang, you have to think clearly. If Fei becomes your son, then in the future, when you are 100 years old, the house and land will all be his. Have you really thought it through?" Thought it through. Rio Kuwabara and Li quickly nodded. "Ri Zhong, we have thought it through very clearly. After Fei is adopted, he will be our biological son, and everything will be his in the future. As long as he sends us off, it will be fine." "All right." Ri Zhong nodded. "Since you have really thought it through, then this matter can't be changed anymore. In the future, it can't be changed, and when the time comes, don't come looking for me again." When Rio Kuwabara and Li heard this, they were even more delighted, and agreed with a smile. Although Ri Zhong felt that they were a little strange today, it didn't affect him, so he didn't think too much about it. He turned to Sang Hong and smiled. "Ahiro, did you hear that?" "I think, Ri Zhong." Sang Hong mustered up his courage and said, "Please forgive me for not agreeing to this matter." "What?" Ri Zhong was surprised. His first reaction was, "This family has all eaten the wrong medicine today." Rio Kuwabara was stunned, and he glared at Sang Hong, about to explode, but Ri Zhong stopped him with a look. "Ahiro," Ri Zhong said, "you have to think it through. If Fei is adopted, he will be the only son of the second branch of the Sang family. In the future, he will inherit everything from the second branch, and the two of you will have less of a burden." "That's right," Rio Kuwabara said unhappily. "Doesn't Fei like to study? We have the money, so let him study. What are you worrying about?" When Sang Hong heard this, he couldn't help but get angry. That was his biological brother. If he didn't worry about him, who would? Them. Where were they when he needed their help and worry in the past? Now they know how to talk big. "Ri Zhong," Sang Hong ignored Rio Kuwabara and cupped his hands towards Ri Zhong. "I'm sure you haven't forgotten what happened yesterday, right? If second Uncle Sang wanted to adopt Fei in the past, I wouldn't have been able to refuse, but it's different now. Firstly, we are no longer a family, so they can't expect us to agree. Secondly, I don't feel at ease letting my brother go." "What do you mean?" Rio Kuwabara panicked when he heard this. "How are we no longer a family? Yesterday's matter doesn't count. Isn't this simple? Just tear up the agreement." "That's right." Li also chimed in. "Ahiro, we're doing this for your own good. If Fei comes with us, you can save on your expenses. Your son and daughter are still waiting for the betrothal gifts and dowry. Besides, can you just stand by and watch your second uncle and aunt die without a son? You're so unfilial." Second Uncle Sang. Second Aunt Sang. Sang Hong trembled with anger. He didn't know how to argue with people, so he could only call them that, reminding them that they were no longer a family. How could Rio Kuwabara and Li agree? They immediately aggressively questioned Sang Hong, forcing him to agree immediately. Sang Hong couldn't take it anymore and said, "Ri Zhong was the witness for yesterday's matter, but he went back on his words after one day. Not to mention us, won't Ri Zhong be criticized as well? Also, second Uncle Sang and second Aunt Sang's attitude suddenly changed. Can I ask why? How can I be at ease handing Fei over to you like this?" He's my biological brother. You've grown wings, haven't you? You even dare to talk back. Rio Kuwabara trembled with anger. You still have the nerve to mention yesterday. You must have done it on purpose yesterday. Yes, it was on purpose. Lee's brain turned, and she hit the nail on the head. Enough, enough. Ri Zhong frowned and interrupted, saying unhappily, if you want to quarrel, then go back and quarrel. Ri Zhong sighed in his heart, thinking that he had almost done something bad out of kindness. Originally, he thought that this couple had really changed, but it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. Sang Hong's words had hit the nail on the head, and he also wanted to know the reason. Also, with this couple's quarrel, just as Sang Hong said, he would also have a reputation of going back on his words. This adoption is a big matter, Ri Zhong made up his mind, and said to Rio Kuwabara, Brother Sang, don't blame me for speaking bluntly. Yesterday, it was clearly you who came to find me and insisted on severing ties with the first branch, but today you want to adopt Fei as your son. The change in attitude is too big. If you don't tell me the reason, then forgive me for not being able to help you. It's all Sang Hong's fault for being so meddlesome. Rio Kuwabara unconsciously glared hatefully at Sang Hong, and then smiled at Ri Zhong, insisting, it's really nothing. Didn't we just say the reason? The two of us don't have a son. The two of you have been childless for decades. It's not like you just found out yesterday. Isn't this reason a bit forced? Ri Zhong interrupted. How could Rio Kuwabara and his wife admit it? They insisted that this was the case, saying that they didn't notice this before, and suddenly thought of it last night, so they came today. Is it really like this? Ri Zhong looked at them suspiciously. But why did I hear Sister Sang say that they did it on purpose yesterday? On purpose? On what purpose? What does this mean? Shut up. Rio Kuwabara shouted to stop Lee, and glared fiercely at her. How could she say such things? It would be bad if she was exposed. Chapter 113. This woman is just talking nonsense. Ri Zhong, don't take it to heart. Rio Kuwabara smiled and said, you can rest assured. I can assure you that after Fei is adopted, we will definitely treat him as our own son. If you don't believe me, we can make a written agreement. I'm old and I don't have a son. When I think about the future, I feel cold in my heart. I really don't have anything to think about. Ri Zhong, you're also an old man. You should be able to understand this. Ahiro, what do you think? Ri Zhong couldn't help but sigh. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have done it in the first place. No. Things had already reached this point. Sang Hong knew that his attitude must be firm. If he showed the slightest trace of weakness, they would definitely not let go. You unfilial son. Do you have the right to speak? Even if you don't agree, you have to agree. Rio Kuwabara glared at Sang Hong and shouted angrily. He was really angry in his heart. Ri Zhong was obviously moved by him. Why did this damn thing suddenly become a tough bone? Sang Hong didn't back down and said, if second Uncle Sang mentioned this before yesterday, I wouldn't have anything to say. But now, you're accusing me of being unfilial. It doesn't seem to be reasonable, right? Ahiro is right. Ri Zhong stared at Rio Kuwabara, who was about to scold. Your two families have already broken off the relationship. You two are no longer his elders. How can you accuse him of being unfilial? His biological brother doesn't want to be adopted by you. It's not up to you to say anything. Okay, let's just forget about this matter. The way I see it, the two of you are still in good health. Why don't you go to the neighboring county and adopt a child from one of the clans? Wouldn't that be the same? Ri Zhong's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but glance at Rio Kuwabara and Li. He suddenly realized something. Oh, Sang Yufei has grown up. Once he's adopted, he'll be a ready-made labor force. He'll save a lot of rice. This couple was most likely planning to do so. Ri Zhong looked down on them even more. He waved his hand impatiently and said, all right. Brother Sang, you're already so old, you can't go back on your words like this. How could a decision made yesterday be completely changed today? Moreover, this was no small matter. All right, it's getting late, let's all go back. That's right, take away the chicken you brought with you. This couple. Ri-jong thought to himself, I didn't say anything. Even if I didn't say anything, you two would have taken it anyway. Sorry to disturb you. Sang-hong stood up and cupped his hands to bid farewell. Ryo Kuwabara grabbed him and said, We haven't asked Faye about this matter yet. How do you know Faye isn't willing? Call Faye over. I'll ask him personally. Right. Faye is a good person. He's not as heartless as you. Lee said. Why are these two talking so incoherently today? They're different from usual? Ri-jong was confused. There's a problem. There's definitely a problem. All right, then call Faye over to ask him too. Ri-jong felt disgusted when he saw the couple pestering him like sticky candy. He just wanted to send them away quickly, so he said, I'll say the ugly words first. If Faye isn't willing, then let's just forget about this matter. Don't say anything else and quickly go back home. If he's willing, Ri-jong, you have to help us. Lee said. Ri-jong glanced at Sang-hong. Seeing that he didn't have anything to say, he nodded and said, If he's willing, then I'll help you. He called his son over and asked him to invite second brother Sang over. Not long after, Sang Yufei knocked on the door and came in. Ri-jong, you're looking for me? Faye, you're here. Faye, come. Second uncle has great news to tell you. Without waiting for Ri-jong to speak, Ryo Kuwabara and his wife walked over to Sang Yufei with smiles on their faces. It was as if they had seen gold ingots. They pulled him over and talked to him passionately. Sang Yufei struggled to break free. He smiled bitterly and said, What's going on? Second Uncle Sang, Second Aunt Sang, can you tell me slowly? Listen to us carefully. This is great news. Ryo Kuwabara told him about adopting him as his son. He said that everything in the second branch would be his in the future. He also said that he wouldn't interfere with his studies. He could study for as long as he wanted. He also said that he would treat him as his own son. If he didn't believe him, he could write a written agreement with Ri-jong. When Sang Yufei heard this, he knew that they must have gotten wind of this news. He sneered in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. Ryo Kuwabara smiled until his face was red. He pulled Sang Yufei over to Ri-jong and said impatiently, Ri-jong, look. Faye doesn't have any objections. Let's write a written agreement right now? Yes. Let's not delay any longer and let other people ruin it. Lee also hurriedly agreed and glared at Sang-hong. Second Uncle Sang. Sang Yufei rudely pushed his hand away. I don't want to. I've lived with my big brother and sister-in-law for so many years. I don't want to be adopted. You want to learn from that heartless and unfilial son? Ryo Kuwabara's face turned cold. Unfilial? I don't know who Second Uncle Sang is to me. You can't say such things. Sang Yufei wasn't as easy to talk to as Sang-hong. He smirked and said mockingly, I'm your second uncle. You can't change this fact. But yesterday, you changed this fact yourself. It's written in black and white. Second Uncle Sang can't have forgotten it so quickly, right? If you forgot, please go back and take a look at it. Sang Yufei glanced at them coldly. He calmly pulled Sang-hong and said, Big brother, let's go home. I say, brother Sang. You should give up now, right? Ri-jong impatiently pushed him and said, It's getting late. Let's go back and make dinner. This matter, let's just forget about it. Don't mention it again. You can adopt a child from anywhere. Isn't it the same? Or you can ask your daughter to find a husband. Why do you have to break up a family? This is karma. It hasn't even been a day and they're already slapping their own mouths. I really don't know what these two are arguing about. Ri-jong shook his head in confusion. He couldn't understand this kind of person's thinking. You did it on purpose. You did it on purpose. Ryo Kuwabara was angry and anxious. He didn't care about anything else. He pointed at Sang Hong and Sang Yufei and shouted, You two brothers must have worked together to set us up yesterday. Sang Yufei, you heartless brat. You didn't even recognize your own family after getting into GUN. You're not a good person. What? Ri Zhong and Sang Yufei exclaimed at the same time. Sang Hong was stunned. His eyes flashed with a trace of panic, but he quickly calmed down. What GUN? You're talking about me. Don't tell me. I got into GUN? Sang Yufei's eyes widened. He pointed at his own nose in disbelief and laughed. I say, second Uncle Sang, you can't joke like this. If I don't get in, you'll compensate me? What the hell is going on? Ri Zhong was also confused. You didn't hear wrong. Fei really got into GUN? Ri Zhong asked excitedly. The whole town knows about it. How can it be wrong? Ryo Kuwabara sneered. He simply told them what he saw and heard in town today. He pointed at Sang Yufei and questioned, You dare say you don't know? Hee, if you didn't know, why did you do that yesterday? You were obviously afraid that we would benefit from your glory, so you deliberately set a trap for us to fall into. Second Uncle Sang. Sang Yufei said coldly, Yesterday, I only went to your house to borrow flour. It's fine if you didn't want to lend it to me. Do you need me to repeat what you said? It's fine if you scolded us brothers, but you didn't even let my father off. Today, you still have the nerve to accuse me of being unfilial. Later on, the ones who insisted on severing ties and looking for Ri Zhong were you two. Sister-in-law tried to persuade you so many times, but did you listen to her? Good, so I got into it. Hee, no wonder you want me to be adopted. Second Uncle Sang, second Aunt Sang, you two have a good plan. My brother and sister-in-law worked so hard to provide for my food, clothes, and education. You two know how to take advantage of me. Ri Zhong suppressed his ecstasy and couldn't help but sigh when he heard this. He said, Brother Sang, no matter what, you two have already severed ties. Fei, second Uncle Sang, if you don't want to be adopted, then you don't want to. Don't mention this again. When he didn't know, he didn't say anything. But now that he knew that Sang Yufei got into the GUN, the county magistrate had to greet him. He was just a small Ri Zhong, so of course, he didn't dare to call him by his name. You all colluded with each other. You tricked us. Ryo Kuwabara flew into a rage out of humiliation and even blamed Ri Zhong. How can you speak like that? Ri Zhong said angrily, Who was the one who begged me to take action yesterday? No, I'm not talking about you. They must have known about it long ago, that's why. Ryo Kuwabara felt guilty and pointed at Sang Hong and his brother. Sang Yufei sneered, Didn't you say that you only saw the officials in town today to announce the good news? The yamen didn't even know about it. How could I know about it first? Besides, if I knew about such a joyous occasion, would I come back in such a shabby state? Second Uncle Sang, you can't be lying to me about this matter, right? Did I really get into it? Sang Yufei's brows furrowed slightly as he spoke, his face full of worry. Ryo Kuwabara was sure that he already knew about it. Seeing him act like this, he was so angry that he almost couldn't breathe. The two of you are already so old. How can you do such a ridiculous thing? When others were in trouble, you stood by the shore and mocked them. Now that they have made a name for themselves, you come and take advantage of them. Is there such a good thing in this world? All right, I can't help you with this matter. Please leave. Ri Zhong coldly chased them away. Ri Zhong wasn't stupid. He had already heard some clues and suspected that the Sang brothers had planned yesterday's matter, but he wasn't stupid enough to say it aloud. Ryo Kuwabara was a person who didn't wake up early if there were no benefits. If there weren't any benefits, he wouldn't have insisted on adopting Sang Yufei. If he did so, it meant that the news he brought back was 99% true. In other words, Sang Yufei was now GUN. In the future, He might have to rely on him for many things, so he was happy to do him a favor. Chapter 114. Thank you, Ri-jong. If there's nothing else, we brothers will be going back first. Sang Yufei was feeling very happy. He smiled and cupped his hands towards Ri-jong. I don't dare. Please go back quickly. Ri-jong hurriedly dodged to the side and returned the greeting. All right, if there's anything you need help with, just let me know. If we really win, we'll have to trouble Ri-jong. Sang Yufei also said politely. You're too polite. Ryo Kuwabara and Lee watched from the side. The two were so angry and embarrassed that they couldn't say anything. Ri-jong sent the two brothers out. When he turned around and saw that the two were still in a daze, he couldn't help but feel disgusted. He pushed and shoved them out of the house. Ryo Kuwabara and Lee were people who bullied the weak but feared the strong. They dared to bully the Sang brothers who didn't have parents, but they didn't dare to challenge Ri-jong. They could only leave Ri-jong's house in a sorry state, cursing and swearing all the way back. Master, what should we do? Lee anxiously wiped her tears. In the future, they'll bully us to death. Especially that Fong, her mouth is sharper than a knife. Humph. Ryo Kuwabara's face was also very ugly. He said coldly, if you don't want to adopt, then so be it. What's so great about that? Humph, if you don't want to acknowledge me as your second uncle, you can dream on. Master, you have an idea? Lee stopped crying and asked hurriedly. You'll know tomorrow. Ryo Kuwabara let out a long breath. He didn't believe that Sang Yufei wouldn't acknowledge him as his biological uncle in front of a group of people tomorrow. Everyone in the village could testify that he was his uncle. If he dared to deny it, his reputation would be ruined. Now that there was a Jun in the village, Ri-jong's face was also glorious. He couldn't wait to spread the news. As a result, the whole Sai village was boiling. Sang Hong's family began to be lively from that night. Because everyone believed that Ri-jong would definitely not lie. If he said so, then it must be so. The Sang Hong brothers and Fong received group after group of people who came to congratulate them. There were respected elders, old women, young women, and men of the same generation. Those families whose children were studying under Sang Hong would not be left behind. One by one, they held their children's hands and brought gifts to the door in high spirits, hoping to be able to bask in Jiuen's happiness. The Sang Hong brothers and Fong were extremely busy. It wasn't until late at night that they finally sent off the last group of people who came to congratulate them. After closing the door, they saw all kinds of gifts piled up in the house. Eggs, noodles, live chickens and ducks, pork, bacon. The three of them simultaneously let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, their expressions were a little strange. Luckily, we all knew what was going on. Otherwise, this would really make us feel uneasy. Fong smiled. She pointed out everyone's thoughts with one sentence. Sang Hong and Sang Yufei couldn't help but nod in agreement. The three of them were all honest people. They wouldn't believe it unless they saw it with their own eyes. If Sang Yufei didn't know that he really did win, he wouldn't have believed everything just based on Ryo Kuwabara's words. If it was fake, then tonight's joke would be too big. The next morning, Sang Wan and Shi Fengju hurried from Willow Town to Sai Village. The good news had already arrived in town yesterday. According to tradition, they had to go to Sai Village to congratulate Jiuen today. Thus, they hurried ahead. When they arrived at Sai Village, Sang Hong's house was already very lively. Before Sang Yufei, there had never been a high scholar in the village. This was the first time. Everyone felt honored and took the initiative to help out at the Sang residence. They also waited for the officials to come and see the excitement. Sang Wan and her husband's arrival naturally caused another commotion. Not to mention anything else, just this scene alone was enough to make everyone happy. For carriages pulled by fine horses came one after the other. Around them were more than 10 servants in bright clothes riding on tall horses. Just this scene alone was enough to attract everyone's attention. When the carriages stopped, Luya and Xing Ji, dressed in pea-green embroidered satin robes, with jeweled silver hairpins and a pile of silk flowers, stepped out of the carriage. They caught up with the people in front of them and helped Sang Wan and Shi Fengju out of the carriage. Everyone was full of admiration and admiration. Someone had already rushed in to tell the Sang brothers and Fong. Sang Wan was dressed in a robe embroidered with flying clouds and gold thread. The sleeves and lapels of the robe were embroidered with 2 inches of gold and silver. At the collar was a white jade ruby head button the size of a chicken egg. In the middle of the button was a thumb-sized ruby. At the bottom was an orange-red dress embroidered with 100 butterflies and flowers. When she moved, it was as bright as the clouds. Her hair was adorned with a festive peony hairstyle. Needless to say, her hair was decorated with jade ornaments and pearls. There wasn't a single person in the crowd who didn't like to see this. They couldn't help but praise the Sang family. Shi Fengju was dressed in a well-fitting sapphire blue satin robe. A sparkling and translucent jade was tied around his waist. He wore a pair of black boots with powder foundation. His black hair was tied up high, and his figure was slender. His face was handsome, and his temperament was extraordinary. When he stood next to Sang Wan, they looked like a perfect match. Words of praise rose and fell without end. The crowd was even more envious. Early in the morning, Ryo Kuwabara had asked Sang Ro to keep an eye on the Sang family and inform him if there was any movement. The return of Sang Wan and Shi Fengju was a big deal. Ryo Kuwabara naturally knew about it. At that time, Ryo Kuwabara wanted to approach Shi Fengju and even hoped that Shi Fengju would speak a few words for him. The Sang brothers were heartless and didn't listen to their second uncle. However, the Shi family was rich and overbearing, so they wouldn't dare to offend them. As long as Shi Fengju helped him, they wouldn't dare to not give him face. The more Ryo Kuwabara thought about it, the more he felt that it was right. However, just as he was about to take a step forward, he retracted his foot. Forget it. A little impatience spoils great plans. Now wasn't the time for him to appear. He should wait until the officials came to announce the good news. Only then would he be able to catch them off guard. Now. In order to curry favor with the 2 brothers, who knew how the villagers would humiliate him. Even Ri Zhong was like that, let alone the others. What if they purposely tried to find trouble and hurt him? Wouldn't that be terrible? However, even though Ryo Kuwabara resisted the urge to go, he couldn't remain calm anymore. If he wasn't present, who knew what those people would say to Shi Fengju and Sang Wan? They would definitely exaggerate and distort the truth to smear his name. No, he had to invite them over for a meeting first. Anyway, he had never said that he would cut ties with Sang Wan, right? Since Sang Wan was back, she couldn't possibly not visit her elder, right? Thus, Sang Ro was forced to send her out. Cousin, Sang Ro forced a smile on her face, my father asked me to invite you and brother-in-law over for a chat. The crowd couldn't help but jeer and tease. Why didn't your father come himself? Why did he call you over? Hee, you don't have to ask. How could he have the face to enter the main branch's door? That's right, look at what he did. But his skin is really thick. He actually asked someone to invite you over. If I were him, I would be so ashamed that I wouldn't come out to see anyone. AI, how can we compare with him? That's right, hee. Everyone was talking at once. Sang Ro didn't dare to make a sound. Her face turned red and white as she looked pitifully at Sang Wan. What happened? Sang Wan was completely baffled. She didn't know what was going on. My great aunt, let's go inside and talk. This matter is really more lively than a play. The aunts were all talking at once. Today was a good day, and Fong was too lazy to give a little girl a hard time. She smiled at Sang Ro and said, Go back and tell your father that our great aunt is not free right now. Let's talk about it later. Quickly go back. Although there was a smile on Fong Shi's face, her eyes were cold. Before Sang Ro could respond, The aunties who were quick on their feet had already persuaded her to return to her room. Chapter 115. After sending Sang-won to her room, Fong excused herself and asked the ladies to accompany Sang-won while she went out to arrange lunch. Sang-won ordered the servants who followed her to bring down the snacks that they had bought. They were placed on a tray and placed on the table for everyone to chat and pass the time. Outside, Chong-hwan and the rest unloaded the fish, chicken, duck, vegetables, oil, salt, sauce, vinegar, and wine from the carriage. Everyone helped out while Fong directed them from the side. The daughters-in-law and aunties were even more delighted. They began to tell Sang-won about what happened 2 days ago, adding some details to the story. Although she had heard from Sang Yufei beforehand, Sang-won could not help but sigh when she heard it from the crowd. Second uncle and second aunt were truly bitterly disappointing. Great aunt, you don't know, but second brother Sang doesn't acknowledge Dalang and Dalang, but he acknowledges great aunt. Who doesn't know what he's thinking? Isn't it because Miss is now the young mistress of the Sher family, so he wants to take advantage of great aunt? How can he say such things? He doesn't acknowledge great aunt's 2 brothers, but acknowledges great aunt. If he had done great aunt a favor in the past, it would be fine, but he didn't. That's right. That's right. Everyone could not help but nod in agreement. Speaking of the couple's unreasonable request to adopt Sang Yufei, everyone's interest was piqued. It was as if they had witnessed it themselves, adding fuel to the fire and making fun of the couple. Sang-won was angry and amused at the same time. She did not want to talk about or listen to such embarrassing things anymore, so she sighed. The 3 of us have relied on each other since we were young. Now, the hard times are over and the good times are coming. My eldest brother is an honest man, so I'm afraid that second brother will be less at home in the future. If anything happens at home in the future, we will need the help of the ladies and sisters-in-law. Let's not talk about anything else. If there's anything you can help us with, we will be grateful. Everybody knew she was talking about Ryo Kuwabara, husband and wife, so they all nodded their heads in agreement. They all laughed and said, "There's no need for grand aunt to remind us. We have to have a conscience. We can't lie through our teeth, right? You should have said something fair." Sang-won thanked him with a smile and took the opportunity to talk about other family matters. They chatted happily about their daily lives. After an unknown period of time, Fong pushed the door open and came in. She rubbed her sore shoulders and said with a smile, "Look at me, I was so busy that I didn't have time to talk to you. It's my fault for not being able to help you, sister-in-law. Sorry for making you work so hard." Sang-won stood up with a smile and pulled Fong to sit down. "What are you talking about? How can I let you work when you finally come back?" Fong said with a smile. "Besides, Luya is still busy outside. Luya is getting more and more capable. Fortunately, she's outside taking care of things, so I was able to relax for a while." Everyone saw that their sister-in-law seemed to have something to say, so they tactfully stood up. They all laughed and said that they would go out to see if there was anything else they needed help with. Those who didn't have good eyesight were also tactfully pulled away. Sang-won and Fong left a few empty words and sent them out. Then, they turned around and sat down to talk. Fong said, "When those officials came to report the good news, I heard second younger brother say that he wanted to reward them. We discussed it and decided that the leader would get 1 tael each, while the others would get 5 chien each. Grand aunt, you've seen the world. Do you think that's enough?" As she spoke, she felt a toothache and frowned. "I was afraid that it wouldn't be enough, so I prepared 36 portions. Say, these people are also too much. Why did they send so many people to report the news? I still have to prepare lunch for them. I'm going to have to spend money again." Xingji was serving at the side. When she heard this, she couldn't help but purse her lips and secretly laugh. She thought to herself that this sister-in-law was actually an honest person. Sang-won also laughed. This is a joyous occasion. Aren't people looking forward to eating a good meal and getting a few rewards? Those who can't come are all here? Sister-in-law, don't feel bad. In any case, there won't be many days where you lack money in the future." After she finished speaking, she ordered Xing Ji to take out a big red envelope from her bag. She took it and handed it to Fong with a smile. "There's a banknote of 100 taels inside. When the time comes, let Big Brother give this to the leader. How they want to divide it is their own business. After lunch, there's nothing else for us to do." 100 taels ah. Fong said in surprise, Isn't it a bit too much? I think 50 taels is enough. Even if you have money, you shouldn't waste it like this." "Sister-in-law," Sangwon said with a smile, "this is a joyous occasion. Being generous is for good luck. How can you say that it's a waste?" Fong could only smile and accept it. She said apologetically, "Look at me, I asked you for advice and ended up making you spend money. Really, sister-in-law, aren't you treating me as an outsider by saying that?" Sangwon said with a smile, "I'm also happy that second brother passed the GUN exam. You shouldn't say such things. Who knows, others might say that I'm trying to curry favor with the rich and powerful." "Nonsense. Does your Shi family still need to curry favor with a GUN who just passed the exam?" Fong said quickly. "The logic isn't the same." Sangwon held her hand and said with a smile, "So, let's not talk about each other. If we continue, we'll be treating each other as outsiders." Fong was startled and laughed. "All right, then let's not talk about it. In any case, we'll remember your kindness in our hearts." Sangwon smiled and said, "Oh right, for such a joyous occasion, shouldn't we treat our fellow villagers to a meal? I wonder what Big Brother and sister-in-law think." Although Sang Yufei was the one who passed the GUN exam, the eldest brother was the father and the eldest sister-in-law was the mother. These matters were naturally decided by Sang Hong and his wife. Sang Wan was already married and could be considered an adult. Thus, Fong could discuss with her, making Sang Yufei an outsider. "Of course, we'll treat them. We've discussed it and we'll prepare a feast to entertain them." Fong said painfully, "Let's not talk about anything else. Just for the sake of our pride, we'll have to put on a good show for everyone to see. Our Sang family is no longer the Sang family of the past. After so many years of mockery and ridicule, I'll definitely vent it all out this time." "Sister-in-law, you're right." Sang Won could not help but smile. The Sang family had been ridiculed for the past few years, and they had been looking forward to this day. Now that the time had come, of course, they would not miss it. The villagers aren't that particular. It's already good enough that there's fish, meat, and chicken for this feast. Your brother and I can still afford to host 20 to 30 tables. You don't have to worry about this matter." Feng Shi knew what Sang Wan was going to say when she saw her opening her mouth and quickly stopped her. "That's not how it is." Sang Wan smiled and said, "If we want to vent our anger, then let's do it quickly and thoroughly. We have to do it properly. After setting a date, we'll invite a chef from the town's restaurant. Shark's fin, bird's nest, and other delicacies can be prepared. A table will cost at most 8 to 10 taels of silver. Sister-in-law, think about it, everyone knows that I'm married into the Shi family. If this feast is too ordinary, people will say that we're stingy. So, please don't be so calculative with me." Feng Shi was dumbstruck for a moment, unable to say anything. Sang Wan's words seemed to make sense. Her in-laws were the wealthiest family in Qingzhou, and their wealth was piled up like a mountain. Her brother had been poisoned by Jiuan, so if this feast was too ordinary, it would not be appropriate. Even if they were not stingy, they would still be considered as siblings who did not get along well. But spending so much money at once, Fong glanced at Xing Ji from the corner of her eyes and asked, "Son-in-law won't have any thoughts about it, right? Spending hundreds to thousands of taels at once was not a small sum." "He won't," Sangwon smiled and said, "This was his idea, but it's not convenient for him to say it, so I'll have to say it." Fong nodded and sighed with a smile. "Since grand-aunt and son-in-law have already put it this way, I can't say anything else. Forget it. In any case, we've already owed him a favor, so there's no harm in owing him a little more. Sangwon laughed. Then this matter is settled. I'll inform the young master later. Sangwon smiled. Fong nodded in agreement. She leaned closer and whispered, There's nothing else, but there's one thing that I'm worried about, and there's no one to discuss it with. Fong said as she pointed in the direction of Ryo Kuwabara's house. She gestured with 2 fingers and frowned. I know those two's temperament the best. I'm afraid that when the officials come to announce the good news, there'll be a good show. What do you think we should do if the 2 of them come and put on airs? Sangwon was also stunned. Everyone in the village knew about the grudges between the 2 Sang families, but the people in town did not. Moreover, this kind of matter wasn't something that could be explained in a short time. If Ryo Kuwabara and Lee came and put on airs, they really couldn't do anything about it. After all, they couldn't argue with them in front of so many people. The people in town didn't know the details, and only saw that the juniors didn't acknowledge their own uncle. They would think that the Sang brothers were unfilial. If that were to spread, it would be very lively. What does Big Brother have to say about this? Fong pursed her lips. What can he do? He said that we can only endure it and wait for the officials to leave. Fong Shi was obviously unwilling to accept this and said angrily, Why? Let them be in the limelight. Sangwon sighed, Sister-in-law, I think Big Brother is right this time. We can only let them be. After all, if they want to come, we can't stop them. We can't just tie them up with rope, right? How can we make a fuss about this in front of the officials? It's like adding bad luck to a happy occasion. I think Big Brother is right. Let's just endure it for a while. Fong didn't say anything for a while. She sighed unwillingly. Are we really going to let them off so easily? Sangwon smiled. Other than a temporary advantage, what else can they gain? Sister-in-law, don't argue with them. Fong thought about it and nodded with a smile. You're right. It's just a matter of a short while. Let them be. As the 2 sisters-in-law were talking in Rijong, they heard a commotion outside. They're here. They're here. A voice came from afar. Fong hurriedly stood up. I have to go out and take a look. Grand Aunt, you should rest first. It wasn't convenient for Sangwon to go out, so she agreed with a smile and sent her to the door. They saw 2 or 3 idlers running over to report that the officials who delivered the good news were behind them and would arrive in about 15 minutes. Chapter 116. Sang Hong thanked them profusely and tipped them with silver. Everyone became excited and looked up, talking and laughing non-stop. Shi Fengju ordered Chong Huan to lead the idlers to sit down and drink tea and eat sweets. He also asked how many people came and what their identities were. After Chong Huan found out, she told the servant who came along, and the servant passed the information to Fong. Fong understood and hurriedly went to the kitchen to make arrangements. Not long after, the faint sound of festive and high-pitched drum music could be heard. The sound of the drum got closer and louder. Many children were already clapping and cheering as they ran forward to watch the fun. Not long after, a group of officials wearing black official uniforms with red edges and tall hats appeared in front of everyone in a grandiose manner. The person in the middle was holding a vermilion lacquer tray with both hands. On the tray was a piece of red silk cloth covering the good news. Several officials were holding up big red banners with black characters. On the banners, there were pictures of fish leaping over the Dragon Gate, and there were also banners with auspicious words such as silence, congratulations, congratulations, and so on. The guards of honor were orderly and dignified. The musicians followed behind them, playing and beating the drums. It was very lively. They're here. They're here. Everyone hurriedly went forward with a smile. He. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your hard work. Ryo Kuwabara and Li, who had been quietly waiting at the side, took advantage of the fact that everyone's attention was on them and appeared like ghosts. They cupped their hands and rushed forward to greet the officials. The deliberately raised voice not only startled Sang Hong and the others, but also the officials. The drum music even went out of tune for a moment. However, the officials didn't pay much attention to it. They just thought that the elders of the family were too happy. They had seen this kind of thing many times. In the blink of an eye, they returned to their normal state and the drum music became even louder. "You flatter me." The leader smiled and cupped his hands. The people Sang Hong had arranged had already prepared the firecrackers. At this time, they lit them together. The firecrackers crackled and exploded enthusiastically. The steaming smoke filled the air, and the air was filled with a thick smell of sulfur. Coupled with the joy, it was especially inspiring. After the sound of the firecrackers subsided, the music stopped as well. The leader of the group then smiled and started singing, "We are here to congratulate Master Top Scorer. Congratulations to Jiuan. Congratulations to Jiuan." As he spoke, he took the tray that was covered with red silk. Everyone had already pushed Sang Yufei out. The leading official knelt on one knee and raised the tray high. Quickly asked the elders to take off the red silk and read the good news to everyone. An official who was familiar with the rules reminded in a voice that was neither loud nor soft. Rio Kuwabara was about to say, "I'll do it," and rushed forward, but Sang Yufei was faster than him. "Let's invite Ri Zhong." As he spoke, he cupped his hands and said, "You are the chief of a village, and you have taken care of me all these years. Please don't refuse." "That's right. Everyone is looking forward to it. Please don't be polite." All the villagers despised Rio Kuwabara and deliberately wanted to squeeze him. They couldn't help but clap their hands and cheer. Intentionally or unintentionally, they pushed him to the back with incomparable enthusiasm. Since that's the case, then this old man won't be polite. Ri Zhong was also very happy. He cupped his hands and walked forward with a smile, directly ignoring Rio Kuwabara, who was secretly gritting his teeth and glaring angrily at him. Ri Zhong walked forward and took off the red silk. He took out the red silk and opened it. With a smile, he read aloud, "Subordinate Sang Yufei from Sai village of Yonglu Town, Qingzhou, took the Gungshu provincial examination and obtained first place. Good, good. Congratulations, congratulations." Although everyone already knew the news, when they heard Ri Zhong read it aloud, they still couldn't control their excitement. They all applauded and cheered, congratulating and congratulating. All the officials also smiled and came forward to congratulate. Sang Hong and Sang Yufei hurriedly returned the greeting. Sang Hong gave the red packet to the leading official and hurriedly invited them into the house to drink tea and rest. He said that he had prepared a meal and invited everyone to stay for dinner. The officials had already smelled the fragrance from the kitchen. They smiled and pretended to decline before entering the house together. "Thank you all for today. I will prepare a banquet to thank you all another day. Many thanks." Sang Hong and Madame Fong bowed to the crowd and thanked them. Everyone knew that they had to entertain the officials who came to report the good news. It was inconvenient for them to stay and cause more trouble. They all smiled and said a few polite words. Other than Ri Zhong and 4 or 5 other respected elders of the village who stayed to accompany the guests and help with cooking, setting the table, and pouring tea, everyone else left. The central house wasn't spacious enough. Only the leading officials and Ri Zhong sat down. The rest of the people were scattered in the courtyard and in the corridor to rest. There were people coming and going to serve them tea, candy, and sunflower seeds. Rio Kuwabara and Li had been blocked by the crowd earlier and hadn't been able to find an opportunity to show off. Now that the crowd couldn't stop them, the two had already rushed into the house. They smiled and invited the officials to sit down. They were full of polite words and loudly ordered, "Hurry up and serve the tea. Bring the tea leaves and make the tea." They used this to show their presence. The leading official couldn't help but be startled. He thought to himself, this person ran out to greet them at the start, but everyone seemed to have intentionally or unintentionally ignored him. He shouldn't be someone from Jiyuan's family, right? But now, his behavior seemed to be that of an elder from Jiyuan's family. When Rio Kuwabara heard the question, he wasn't in a hurry to answer. He smiled and looked at Sang Yufei intimately. He wanted to force Sang Yufei to call him second uncle in front of everyone. Ryo Kuwabara was able to keep his cool, but Lee didn't have so many tricks up her sleeve. When she saw that no one was speaking, she immediately said impatiently, "Our family's master is Yufei's biological uncle. Yufei is our biological nephew." Yufei? The leading official was momentarily stunned by such an intimate address. Ri Zhong and the other elders scolded her. What a scandal! Is Jiyuan's name something you can casually call out? Ignorant woman, there's no place for you here. Hurry up and leave. Only then did the officials come back to their senses. So that's how it is. But when they saw the scene of this woman being scolded, their hearts secretly skipped a beat. They thought to themselves, there's a story. They were all experienced officials, so naturally, they didn't reveal anything on their faces. They immediately nodded politely at Ryo Kuwabara and smiled as they sipped their tea. Master. Lee looked at Ryo Kuwabara with an aggrieved expression. Ryo Kuwabara was too busy taking care of himself, so how could he have the time to pay attention to her? He said unhappily, "Don't you see a bunch of men here? Why aren't you going down? Why are you making a ruckus? Go to the kitchen and help out with the preparation of the food. In a while, you'll be able to serve the officials." Only then did Lee regain her spirit. She smiled and said, "Yes." Then, she walked away with her chest puffed out. But Fong was in the kitchen, so how could anyone pay attention to her? When they saw her come in and look around, they were too lazy to pay attention to her and pretended not to see her. Whatever she asked, they would just say, "I'm busy, I don't have time." This made Lee so angry that her stomach was filled with unhappiness. "Officials, you've worked hard today. You must eat and drink well in a while." Ryo Kuwabara said emotionally, "Our Sang family has finally made it. My nephew didn't have it easy. Jiyuan is so young. He must have a bright future ahead of him," the official said with a smile. "Of course. In the future, I'll be waiting to enjoy a good life, Ryo Kuwabara said and sighed. He said that the brothers' parents had passed away early, and that he had been worried about them and supported them all these years. Now that he saw that they were all successful, he was truly gratified. The officials didn't understand the situation, but when they heard this, they couldn't help but feel deep veneration. They all chimed in to agree. But gradually, they began to feel that something was wrong. Other than Ryo Kuwabara, no one else, including the Sang Yufei brothers and Ri Zhong, said anything. Everyone couldn't help but feel puzzled. One of them was quick-witted and tactfully changed the topic. He coughed and said with a smile, "This tea is really good. It smells good, it tastes good, and it looks good." An old man chuckled and pointed at Shi Fengju. Of course. This tea was brought back by the Sang family's eldest son-in-law and grand-aunt. If it wasn't good stuff, why would they bring it back? Everyone laughed and agreed. Someone suddenly had a flash of inspiration and exclaimed, "The Sang family's eldest son-in-law, isn't it? Isn't it the eldest young master of the Shi family, the richest family in Qingzhou?" With that, everyone's eyes lit up. They looked at Shi Fengju with even more enthusiasm than they looked at Sang Yufei. It's just a title that everyone gave me, it's not worth much." Shi Fengju smiled faintly. "Ai. So it really is the eldest young master of the Shi family. It's an honor to meet you." The officials were excited and cupped their hands in greeting. Shi Fengju smiled and cupped his hands in return. Everyone chatted and laughed, and the atmosphere relaxed. Ryo Kuwabara also joined in the laughter. He took the opportunity to interrupt. "There's no need to say anything. This son-in-law of our Sang family is a good person. He doesn't put on any airs and is especially filial to his elders. Every time he comes back, he'll visit me. For my niece to have such a husband, my big brother's spirit in heaven will be gratified." Shi Fengju felt extremely uncomfortable when he heard this. He was someone who didn't want to hold himself back. He didn't need to be as careful as Sang Hong and his brother. He smiled faintly and said, you're too polite. Even this time, Wan Yang and I have only come back twice. I don't deserve your praise. Besides, you have your own daughter. Whether or not she is filial to you, it's not up to me." Rio Kuwabara blushed and hurriedly smiled at everyone. "He's too polite, too polite." "No, no, you're the one who's being polite." Shi Fengju smiled. "I'm just speaking the truth." Li Jiang and the rest of the elders could not help but grumble inwardly. This second brother of the Sang family was not someone to be trifled with. Everyone broke out in a cold sweat as they watched. Who would have thought that the young master of the Shi family was not someone to be trifled with? Fortunately, since he could say so, it could be seen that he was a straightforward person with a good heart. Thus, they quickly changed the topic with a smile. Rio Kuwabara had a stomach full of anger and frustration. Fortunately, Li came running over and said with a smile, "The food is ready. Please, everyone." Everyone stood up and exchanged pleasantries. Chapter 117. The weather was good at noon, so the dining table was set up in the courtyard. There were a total of 4 tables, and the Sang brothers, Shi Fengju, and the Rizhong elders were all seated together. The women placed the food and wine on the table before retreating. There was another table in the kitchen for the people who were helping out. This table wasn't as particular, and the food was more casual. However, it was still top-notch. When the officials saw that there were fish, chicken, duck, and meatballs, as well as the best fun wine in town, they couldn't help but feel happy. They politely invited the guests to take a seat, inwardly praising the Sang family for their manners. Madame Li looked around the kitchen and exclaimed, "Io, is our family's grandaunt's meal ready yet? I'll bring it to her." The women all laughed. "Sister-in-law Fong sent it over a long time ago. We were still waiting for you." When Li heard this, she couldn't care less about the ridicule and mockery. She turned around and went to the side room. Sang Wan and Fong were sitting across from each other as they ate. When they saw Li suddenly barge in, the two of them were stunned. "Wan Yang is already eating. Hee, I thought no one would care about you, so I had them prepare food for you. I didn't think that your sister-in-law would already send it over." Fong didn't even bother to put down her chopsticks. She raised her head and smiled. "This is my home, and Wan Yang is my little sister. Shouldn't I be the one taking care of her? Don't worry about such irrelevant matters. I see that you've been busy for half a day. Go to the kitchen and eat." When Sang Wan heard this, she smiled and lowered her eyes without saying anything. Li Shi was hoping that Sang Wan would ask her to stay, but who knew that Sang Wan would act as if she did not hear her at all. She sat down and chuckled. "I won't be going to the kitchen. There are too many people there, so I'll stay and eat with you all. Do whatever you want. There are no empty bowls here," Fong said indifferently. Li wanted to get up and go to the kitchen to get a bowl, but she didn't want to be ridiculed by those women. She looked up and saw Xing Ji standing beside her. She smiled and said, "Sister, please help me get a bowl and chopsticks from the kitchen." "I say, second Aunt Sang, how can you order people around like this? He's from the Shi family. He's a guest, do you understand?" Fong frowned. "Isn't she just Wan Yang's maid? I'm Wan Yang's second aunt. Can't I order a maidservant around?" Li disagreed. "You, sister-in-law." Sang Wan could faintly hear the gunpowder in Li's words. She thought about how Fong said that Li was running around and wasn't welcomed. She was afraid that she would take the opportunity to make a fuss and it wouldn't look good if the people outside heard it. She smiled gently and stopped her. She said to Xing Ji, "Go. The elderly are old and should accept your bow." It was obvious that she didn't care about relatives and only cared about etiquette. "Yes, young mistress." Xing Ji didn't mind. She bent her knees and bowed before turning to leave. "Our Wan Yang is still the most polite." Li proudly threw a glance at Fong and smiled at Sang Wan. She patted Sang Wan's hand affectionately. Her greedy eyes looked down from her head and praised, Wan Yong's gold hairpin, jewels, and clothes aren't cheap. It's really beautiful. As she spoke, her eyes lit up and her mouth was full of praise. She asked what the material was and what kind of hairpin it was. Suddenly, she grabbed Sang-won's hand and refused to let go. This gold bracelet is studded with so many jewels. It's really beautiful. Teske, whoever has one can use it as a family heirloom. As she spoke, she reached out to touch it, wishing that she could take it off Sang-won's wrist. Sang-won smiled vaguely and refused to take the initiative to offer it. Fong couldn't stand it anymore and pushed her hand away rudely. Second Aunt Sang, how can Wan Nyong eat like this? I'm not talking to you. Why are you interrupting? Lee snorted unhappily and glared at Fong. I say, you should go out and take a look. There are so many things waiting for you to take care of. You don't need to worry about our family's matters. Fong retorted coldly. Coincidentally, Xingji came back with the bowls and chopsticks. Sang-won saw Lee take the bowls and chopsticks with a smile. She stood up and said, I'm a little tired and want to go back to my room to rest. Eldest sister-in-law, Fong quickly smiled and said, the room is clean and tidy. I'll send you there. Have a good rest. As she spoke, she pulled Sang-won away. Wan Nyong, why don't you sit and chat with Auntie? Why are you resting in the middle of the day? You'll fall sick if you rest too much. Lee saw that Sang-won was about to leave and quickly stood up to stop her. Xingji calmly stood in front of her and blocked her. She smiled and said, our young mistress is used to resting in the fu. She doesn't like to be disturbed at this time of the day. Auntie, please treat her to a meal. As she spoke, she hurriedly followed after her. Shameless, really shameless. Fong was furious. She glared at Sang-won and said, fortunately, you didn't fall into her trap. I say, you've learned a lot in the Shi family. You're acting like a young mistress now. If this was in the past, hee. Fong didn't say it out loud, but Sang-won knew what she meant. In the past, Sang-won had a gentle personality. With Lee's behavior, even if she was unwilling, she wouldn't be able to get over it. She would definitely take off the bracelet and give it to Lee. But today, she didn't give it to her. Listen to what eldest sister-in-law is saying. Do I really not know right from wrong? Sang-won smiled. Sang-won secretly sighed. This was the lesson she had learned from her previous life. There were some people that couldn't be tolerated, connived, or backed down because they would never feel grateful. They would only think that you were easy to bully, and then take a mile when given an inch. I didn't say that. Fong quickly objected, and the two of them laughed. Lee couldn't help but feel annoyed. She angrily sat down and muttered, she's the richest person in Qing province, but look at how stingy she is. She can't even bear to give a broken bracelet to her elders. How shameless. After the officials had eaten and drank to their heart's content, they left the Sang residence. Sang Hong, his brother, Ri Zhong, and the others sent them off. Ri Zhong, elders, in 2 days, we plan to hold a banquet to invite the villagers to have a lively meal. When the time comes, please come. Sang Hong bowed to everyone and said with a smile. Everyone smiled and said that they naturally had to come. This was the glory of the entire village. Moreover, it was also a good opportunity to get some of the Jiyuan's talent. Ri Zhong held Sang Hong's hand and said with a smile, if there's anything you need help with, just let us know. This is a joyous occasion for our entire village. Everyone is willing to help. That's right, that's right. The elders all smiled and said. Rio Kuwabira was also unperturbed. He arrogantly asked Sang Hong, there's a lot of things to prepare. You're still young and inexperienced, so how would you know? Let me take charge. How could we trouble you with our family's matters? Fong had just come out from inside. She couldn't bear listening to this and couldn't help but interrupt. You're just a woman. What right do you have to interrupt? Ri Zhong, uncles, you've all seen it. This woman doesn't respect her elders and doesn't accept filial piety. How can someone like her be the sister-in-law of our Sang family's Jiuan? Ahiro, you should divorce her as soon as possible. Ryo Kuwabara immediately shouted angrily with a stern face. Everyone at the table was very polite to him just now. He immediately regained his confidence and put on airs. Fong was furious, but Sang Yufei signaled her to stop. Sang Yufei whispered to Shi Fengju, brother-in-law, I see that you're tired. Why don't you go back to your room and rest for a while? It was really embarrassing for something like this to happen in the family. It wouldn't be good to make a fuss in front of outsiders. Shi Fengju also knew what he meant. He smiled and agreed. After bidding farewell to Ri Zhong and everyone else, he walked back. Son-in-law, you can't leave. Ryo Kuwabara was suddenly energized. He grabbed Shi Fengju's arm and shouted, Son-in-law, you're a polite person. You have to make a decision for this old man. Tell me, shouldn't Fong be divorced for being so disrespectful to her elders? Everyone understood Shi Fengju's intention to avoid the matter. They also knew that it was for the best. It would save him the trouble of saying what he needed to say in front of everyone. Seeing Ryo Kuwabara act like this, they all felt disgusted. However, no one was as shameless as him and went forward to pull him away. Thus, no one said anything. That's not good. Shi Fengju smiled. He calmly pulled his arm out of Shi Fengju's grasp and said with a smile, Ri Zhong and the elders are already here. If you have anything to say, just ask them. As an outsider, I can't interfere. I'm feeling a little dizzy. I really need to take a rest. Forgive me for not keeping you company, everyone. Young Master Shi, please. The crowd couldn't wait to say goodbye to Shi Fengju. They watched as Chong Huan helped him out. Ryo Kuwabara still wanted to pull him away, but Shi Ming and the others had already stopped him with a smile. Ryo Kuwabara glared at the crowd and said, What a great idea you have. Why? Are you afraid that my niece-in-law will make a decision for me? Ryo Kuwabara couldn't wait to remove the word niece-in-law from niece-in-law. He thought that if the young master of the Shi family was his son-in-law, these people would be licking their faces and trying to curry favor with him. How would they dare to be so rude to him? Brother Sang, as a person, you have to have a conscience and be trustworthy. Written evidence in black and white is not a joke. If you continue to make a fuss, don't blame me for being ruthless and disregarding our relationship as fellow villagers. Ri Zhong said coldly. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Ryo Kuwabara went all out. He pointed at Fong and said coldly, This wicked woman disrespects her elders and doesn't follow the rules of filial piety. Instead of speaking up for me, you threatened her. How are you, Ri Zhong? Are you worthy? Preposterous. A thin elder with white hair and beard, known as Uncle Lu, said angrily, Is there anyone who speaks like that? You've already severed ties with her, so why should she be filial to you? Look at how you're baring your fangs and brandishing your claws. Are you worthy of being filial to her? Let me tell you, it's not just Ri Zhong, us old men are here too. Look at your attitude. The elders nodded. That's right. Have you helped Ahiro and his brothers at all these years? When Wan Nyong got married, did you buy any dowry? Nothing at all. That's not all, but you're still trying to bully and take advantage of them. What kind of uncle are you? Oh, you're the one who insisted on severing ties with them. Now that they're rich, you're trying to put on airs and take advantage of them. Aren't you being too greedy? Aren't you all the same? Ryo Kuwabara said angrily, Don't tell me you've taken care of them in the past? Aren't you still trying to take advantage of them now? Chapter 118. All the elders and Ri Zhong were so angry that they couldn't say anything. Second Uncle Sang, what are you talking about? Sang Yufei said coldly, The elders are not related to us brothers, but they are willing to help us judge and make decisions. This is the greatest care. Towards the elders, we brothers also sincerely respect them. When did they put on airs and take advantage of us? How come we didn't know? Shouldn't you think about yourself first before saying such things? Jun, don't say that. This is what we should do. Yes. All the elders were relieved when they heard this. You dare to talk back to me, you. Rio Kuwabara was angry. Enough. Uncle Lu said coldly, Rio Kuwabara, I'm warning you, you are not allowed to harass the Sanghong brothers in the future. If you dare to be so shameless again, don't blame us for not being polite. Not being polite. What do you want? Rio Kuwabara sneered. Do you want to silence us? Come on, if you have the guts, come here and greet us. Whoever hides is a grandson. Rio Kuwabara shouted while pointing his finger at his own head. Everyone was angry and amused when they saw him acting so shamelessly. Sang Hong and Sang Yufei looked at each other and felt embarrassed. This was their uncle who was related to them by blood. Killing you would only dirty my hands. Uncle Lu rolled his eyes at him in disdain and said coldly, The people of Sai Village are simple and honest. We can't tolerate cunning, greedy, and tricky people. If you dare to make trouble again, then get out of Sai Village. Yes. You can try if you dare. All the elders were angry, and their expressions were cold. Sang Hong and Sang Hong's faces changed slightly. They didn't expect things to go this far. Rio Kuwabara's pupils suddenly shrank. They wanted to expel him from the village. This was a very serious consequence. It meant that from now on, he would lose the protection of the village and become a rootless catkin without a fixed residence. No village would be willing to take in someone who had been expelled by another village. This kind of person was usually a black sheep, and keeping them would only add to the trouble. He could only take his family and wander far away in a foreign land. It would be an arduous process to start anew and reintegrate. Otherwise, they could live in the city. Once they left the land, even a blade of grass in the city would cost money. It wouldn't be easy to survive. How dare you? Rio Kuwabara was scared, but he still put on a strong front and sneered, Good. You're ganging up to bully me, a lone wolf. You guys are shameless. His conscience had been eaten by a dog. I'll report you to the yamen. You're rebelling. You're rebelling. Uncle Lu and the others shouted angrily, Today we've seen what it means to have no respect for your elders and elders. Just based on your words, let's see if the yamen will help you or us. Do you want to go to the yamen? Go ahead, go ahead. No one's stopping you. Uncle Lu suddenly turned to Sang Hong and Sang Yufei and ordered in a deep voice, You guys don't have to pay attention to this person anymore. When you see him, go in and close the door. If anyone dares to say that you're disobedient and want to report you, you can come to this old man. This old man will make the decision for you. Yes. Come to us. All the elders and Ri Zhong said in unison without hesitation. They didn't hide the disgust in their eyes as they glanced at Rio Kuwabara. All right. It's time for us old fellows to go back. You guys must be tired these 2 days. Go back and have a good rest. If there's anything, come to us for help. If we can help, we'll definitely help. Disperse. Uncle Lu took a deep breath and said with a smile. Everyone nodded and smiled as they cupped their hands and bid farewell. After watching everyone leave, Fong pulled Sang Hong's arm and gave Sang Yufei a look. The three of them pretended not to see Rio Kuwabara and went back into the courtyard, completely closing the door. In the late autumn afternoon, the sunlight was already very thin. It shone on the ground at an angle, making it seem somewhat desolate. Rio Kuwabara's face turned green and white. He gritted his teeth and said hatefully, Bastards, you're all bastards. Just wait and see. When I become rich, don't come and beg me. He raised his head and spat at Sang Hong's door. Rare. People say that the higher you climb, the harder you fall. I'll open my eyes wide and see how you fall one by one. After saying that, he snorted coldly and turned around to walk back to his house. He had never been so sullen in his life. The more Rio Kuwabara thought about it, the angrier he became. The two brats of the first branch really grew wings. Rio Kuwabara was so angry that after returning home, he vented his anger on Li and scolded her. Li felt wronged. Seeing that he was angry, she didn't dare to talk back. She could only endure the storm and wait for the strong wind and rain to pass. Then she raised her head and said, "Master, it's fine if we don't fight for this title. In any case, the blood relationship between the two families can't run away. If something really happens to us, will they not care? I don't believe that if we don't have enough food to eat or money to pay for medical treatment, will they not care? If they really don't care, I'll sit in front of their house and see what they can do. Moreover, isn't there still Wan Nyong? We didn't sever our relationship with Wan Nyong." Rio Kuwabara was startled and his anger subsided a little. The old woman's words seemed to make sense. If they really didn't have food to eat, they didn't believe that they would watch their own uncle and aunt starve to death. As Rio Kuwabara said this, he couldn't wait to have no food at home next time. Unfortunately, he also knew that it was impossible. He felt that it made sense in his heart, but he refused to admit it. He said with a straight face, "What title or no title, how can you say that?" He couldn't help but feel his heart ache. That kid will receive many gifts this time. We won't be able to get anything. This isn't a big loss for us. Li also felt her heart ache. Humph. Rio Kuwabara coldly stared at her and said, "Isn't it all because of you? If you weren't so mean and stingy in the past, how could there be today?" Li said, "Aren't you the same? You're even stingier than me. You said a lot of mean words." However, she didn't have the guts to argue with Rio Kuwabara. "How does Wan Nyong treat you?" Rio Kuwabara suddenly asked. "Very well. He. Li's face revealed a proud smile, and she praised, "Wan Nyong is different from those heartless people from the Sang family. She doesn't treat me as an outsider." Rio Kuwabara nodded, curry favor with her and build a good relationship with her. Tonight, kill a chicken, prepare some good dishes, boil a pot of good wine, and invite the two of them over for dinner. Even if he couldn't control Sang Yufei, he couldn't control Sang Wan as well. That would really make him sullen to death. Oh. Okay then. Li felt her heart ache when she heard that she had to kill a chicken. Rio Kuwabara glared at her, so she didn't dare to say anything and could only agree. She thought to herself, it's not like they haven't eaten chicken before. Why would they care about this? Maybe they even like to eat the wild vegetables in the countryside, looking for something new. When the time comes, just cook half of the chicken and leave the other half for us to eat tomorrow. Sangwon entered the room to avoid Li and wasn't really resting, so she only took off her outer robe and lay on the bed. Half of the blanket covered her chest, and she chatted and laughed with Xingji to relieve her boredom. Not long after, someone knocked on the door and asked if it was Shi Fengju. Sangwon put on her clothes and got off the bed to welcome him. She smiled. "Why are you here? Where are my eldest brother and second brother? They have something to do." Shi Fengju smiled vaguely. "I'm a little dizzy, so I came in to lie down." "Oh, then lie down quickly." Sangwon glanced at him suspiciously. The smell of alcohol on him wasn't strong, and he wasn't someone who couldn't drink. He must be trying to avoid something, right? Thinking of her purpose of entering the room, Sangwon couldn't help but laugh. She suddenly understood. "Hey, what are you laughing at?" Shi Fengju lay down and looked up to see her laughing strangely. He couldn't help but ask curiously. "Nothing," Sangwon said, "just lie down and rest for a while. I can't make you any hangover soup right now. Why don't I make a bowl of strong tea for you to drink?" Shi Fengju smiled and nodded. He glanced at Xingji, asked Xingji to go. Xingji hurriedly bowed and went out. Sangwon sat on the stool in front of the bed and chatted with him intermittently. After about an hour, the two of them went out. Everyone tacitly stopped talking about Rio Kuwabara and Li. They only talked about the arrangements for the banquet the day after tomorrow and Sang Yufei's plans after he passed the imperial examinations. I think we should let Chong Huan and Auntie Li take the carriage back to town. We can buy all the ingredients and condiments we need in these 2 days and bring the Spring Crane Restaurant's chef back the day after tomorrow. It's cheaper, Shi Fengju said. Sang Hong had already heard from his wife about his younger sister and brother-in-law's intentions, so he didn't refuse. He sincerely thanked him. I'll have to trouble brother-in-law. Big brother, you don't have to be so polite. Shi Fengju smiled and said, I'm just saying a few words. If you really feel bad about it, you can just reward the servants who did the work. The more people there were, the easier it would be to talk. The servants of the Shi family worked for the Sang family. Although they didn't dare disobey their master's orders, they would inevitably feel dissatisfied if they didn't get rewarded. It wouldn't be good for the Sang family and Sang Wan when they returned. That was why Shi Fengju said that. Yes, yes. Sang Hong nodded and smiled. That's for sure. When the time comes, we'll definitely reward them handsomely. Not a single one of them will be left behind. As he spoke, he gave some instructions to Fong. Fong hurriedly agreed with a smile. She thought about privately discussing with Sang Wan how much she should reward each person. She couldn't let others gossip behind her back. All right, I'm afraid that in the next 2 days, the gentry and noble families of the 4 villages and 8 towns will pay us a visit. Shi Fengju pondered for a moment, then raised his head to look at Sang Hong and Sang Yufei. He smiled and said, I'm sure that big brother and second brother know that these people won't come empty-handed. How do you plan to deal with them? Second brother, you were the one who got the JUN, so they're coming for you. Big brother won't interfere in this matter. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to worry about big brother. As long as it's your decision, big brother will support it. Sang Hong was also an educated person, so he naturally understood that the gentry and noble families came to befriend them. However, they didn't befriend them for nothing. After all, who knew how they would repay them in the future? Chapter 119. Sang Yufei unconsciously frowned. After a while he said, Big brother, brother-in-law, I still have to participate in the examination next year. There are good and bad people everywhere. I think it's better if... Sang Hong already understood what he meant. He nodded and said, if they come to congratulate us, we welcome them and treat them with respect. Since they've given us gifts, then we should reject them. I think so too. Sang Yufei immediately let out a sigh of relief. The reason why he didn't say anything earlier was because he felt that his big brother and sister-in-law should be able to follow him and enjoy a good life. But if he rejected them, then there would be nothing left. That's not appropriate. Shi Fengju shook his head and said, we're family, so I'll be direct. Second brother is afraid that despicable and treacherous people will ruin his reputation. But in the end, we're all from the same village. If you reject their good intentions, it will make people think that you're arrogant and think that you're above everyone else. With all due respect, this isn't a good thing for second brother. This can't be, right? Sang Hong was stunned. Can't I accept their gifts even if I don't want to? Brother-in-law is right. Sang Yufei's expression changed slightly, and he secretly broke out in a cold sweat. The reputation of being arrogant and aloof often meant that one was unsociable and unsociable. How could one become an official in the future? It wouldn't be enough to offend people. We didn't consider it thoroughly enough, this matter, Sang Yufei frowned. Fine, we'll accept their gifts first. We'll just prepare a gift in return later. Shi Fengju secretly nodded when he heard him say this. He thought that if second brother could think this way, then he would definitely be able to fight for a career in the government. If he had the same opinion as his big brother, then he would advise him not to get involved in the government. Otherwise, he would be oppressed and bullied in the future. If he accidentally offended someone, his life would be in danger. When you return the gift, you should be less generous than when they sent it. This way, they'll know that you appreciate their kindness. Shi Fengju said with a smile. Brother-in-law is right. Sang Yufei smiled and nodded. Sang Hong sighed and said, younger brother-in-law is experienced and knowledgeable, your thinking is more thorough. I really don't understand these things. Forget it. You two can discuss it as you see fit. As long as it's good for you Fei, I have no objections. Big brother. Sang Yufei looked at Sang Hong gratefully, his heart filled with warmth. Shi Fengju continued, that's not all. I'm afraid there will be a lot of people coming one after another to become slaves. These people. Shi Fengju raised his eyebrows. Most of them are cunning and opportunistic people. Keeping them will only do more harm than good. We should reject them properly. If the family needed servants, they would rather spend more effort to buy them from a reliable broker. It would save them a lot of trouble. If my two brothers don't think too much, just let me know if you need to buy someone in the future. The Shi family was naturally familiar with the brothels in Qingzhou City, and the Shi family's butler had his own way of selecting people. Sang Yufei quickly smiled and said, look at what younger brother-in-law is saying. When the time comes, we will naturally have to trouble younger brother-in-law. Thank you in advance. Second brother is too polite. Shi Fengju also smiled and nodded. As the three of them discussed, Fong was in a corner, talking to Sang Wan while sewing the shawls. The Sang siblings, Lu Ye, and Xing Ji were in the courtyard, laughing and playing around. I think our family's son-in-law is really not bad. He's really considerate. It's rare. Fong nudged Sang Wan with her elbow and sighed. Sister-in-law. Sang Wan could only smile in return. I've always been a person who only speaks the truth. Fong sighed and said, our family's son-in-law still treats us like this despite his family background. He's much better than many people in this world. Wan Yang, you're really lucky. Sang Wan stammered, and the smile on her face was a little unnatural. It was impossible to say that she didn't feel guilty. Compared to her previous life, he was much, much nicer to her, including to her family. However, he was only ambiguous like this, and his eyes sometimes seemed to be burning her until her face turned red and her heart beat faster. He had never said anything clearly, so what was the meaning of this? There was also Gu Fengzi, who was always a thorn in her heart. Thinking about how she could cause so much trouble when she was still in her mourning period, she believed that the day her mourning period ended would be the day she officially declared war on her. When that time comes, would he still treat her the same way as now? Gu Fengzi had been in the Shi family for many years, and was raised by her mother-in-law like a biological daughter. She was also his childhood sweetheart, and they were childhood sweethearts. She had everything, but Shi Fengzi had nothing. No, she still had a sister-in-law who, for some reason, disliked her no matter what. She would always pick on her whenever she wanted to. Sang Wan's eyes darkened, and she sighed silently. By the way, Fong did not notice the change in her mood and asked softly, are you pregnant? Ah. What? Sang Wan was so distracted that she did not hear it. It was only when Fong nudged her again that she asked blankly. Fong stared at her with a smile and said, What? I'm asking you if you're pregnant? Yes, no. Sang Wan was stunned for a moment before she understood what she was asking. She could not help but blush and gently shake her head. You. Fong anxiously pushed her and said, Don't treat it like it's nothing. Did you get a doctor to take a look? Their Shi family is not short of money. Get a doctor to take a look, and eat more of those nourishing herbs on a daily basis. I don't think our son-in-law is someone who can't bear to spend this money. Your mother-in-law can't say anything, right? Isn't this for their Shi family's grandson? All right, sister-in-law. I know. The more Sang Wan listened, the more uncomfortable she felt. She quickly smiled and said, You really don't know what to do. Why don't you make people worry? Fong snorted and said, While that vixen cousin is still mourning, you have to give birth to the child quickly. You're the legal wife, and you have a son by your side. You also have a brother who took the JUN exam. That vixen can't do anything to you even if she has the means to do so. I'll remember sister-in-law's words. Sang Wan only wanted to end this topic quickly, so she quickly agreed. She glanced outside and said, I think it's getting late. Sister-in-law, what should we eat tonight? Fong glared at her and suddenly laughed. Don't worry, I won't let your young master suffer. Look at how anxious you are. Sang-won was speechless and could only smile in tacit agreement. All right, it's getting late. I'll go cook. Help me keep an eye on those two children and don't let them fool around, Fong said as she got up. Xiao Nuan and Xiao Quan are so obedient. How could they fool around? Sang-won said with a smile. Those two cows. Forget it. Don't praise them, Fong said as she got up and patted her clothes. Sang-won couldn't help but giggle. She also got up and went out, standing at the door to watch the siblings play. Unexpectedly, before it was time for dinner, Li came knocking on the door with Sang Yen. She was all smiles and wanted to invite Shi Fengju and Sang-won over for dinner. Shi Fengju was afraid of their family and found an excuse to leave, letting the siblings deal with it themselves. Li was easier to get rid of than Ryo Kuwabara. With the elders and Ri Zhong around, one Fong was enough to get rid of her. How can our biological younger sister and brother-in-law go over to your house for dinner? If word gets out, people will point at our backs and gossip, saying that we don't act like siblings and sisters-in-law. We can't afford such a bad reputation. Fong unceremoniously pushed and shoved her out, then locked the door from the inside. Li didn't even have a chance to speak to Sang-won before she was pushed out. She was so angry that she banged on the door, shouting loudly as she did so. Fong ignored her and pretended not to hear her. Li didn't manage to open the door. Instead, the neighbors opened their doors, pointing at her and shaking their heads. Mother, mother, let's go back, let's go back. Sang Yen was so embarrassed that her face was flushed red. She anxiously tugged at Li's sleeve. Go back? Madame Li forcefully pointed her finger at her daughter's forehead and hatefully said, You're a good-for-nothing. You can't do anything. Mother. What does this have to do with me? Sang Yen felt wronged and began to cry. She covered her face and turned to run home. Damn girl. Even you dare to give this old lady bad luck. You crawled out of this old lady's intestines, so this old lady can't say anything about you. Where did you learn to be so frivolous? Rebel. Li scolded. In the end, she couldn't do anything to Fong and could only angrily turn to go home. You didn't invite them? Ryo Kuwabara's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and said, Good. Ruthless. What does it have to do with them that I invited Shi Fengju and Wan Nyang? If they have the ability, they won't open the door for the rest of their lives. She left. The noise outside the door stopped. Fong came out of the kitchen wearing an apron. Luya couldn't wait any longer. She rushed forward and looked outside through the crack in the door. When she heard this, she turned around and nodded at Fong. She won't be leaving. Don't worry, Aunt. Humph, this kind of person, we should have dealt with her earlier. AI, at least you have a conscience. You can tell right from wrong. Fong laughed loudly. Of course. I've always disliked her. Luya raised her head. In the past, Li had often scolded her and Sang-won. She would occasionally ask her to help her with work and even threaten to sell her off. She had always been scared to death. She had been with Sang-won for so many years. The two of them were like sisters. How could she bear to leave? Hee, good girl. Your daughter didn't dote on you for nothing. Fong laughed again and turned to go into the kitchen. After dinner, everyone sat for a while. Everyone was a little tired and went to rest. Chong Huan and the other servants who had come to help had all gone to town. It was easy to make arrangements for the night's sleep. Considering that there might be people coming to visit tomorrow, Sherming stayed behind to help carry things or run errands. At night, he slept on the floor in Sang Yufei's room. After all, their statuses were different now. It was inconvenient for Sang Yufei to do some things himself. Sang Hong was his brother, so it was even more inconvenient. Sang Quan went to sleep with his father, leaving his room empty for Xing Ji and Luya. Fong squeezed in with Mother Su and Sang Nuan. Sang-won and She Fengju slept in the room that Sang-won used to sleep in. Everyone else was fine, but when the door closed, Sang-won realized the problem. How was she going to sleep with a blanket? She glanced at She Fengju and her face turned red. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.